Getting started with Arsenic and Old Lace on the radio and the game. Thanks so much for swinging by. We shall catch you guys on the flip time.
Know then that the beginning is a very delicate time. Know then that it is the year 10,191. The known universe is ruled by the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV. My God.
From New York, where the American stage begins, NBC presents Best Plays, transcribed with John Chapman. A series of hour-length dramas based on famous theatrical books begun by the late Burns Mantle, now edited by the distinguished drama critic of the New York Daily News, John Chapman.
Mr. Chapman, good evening. Almost 600 years ago, a man named Geoffrey Chaucer coined a phrase. He couldn't spell very well, apparently, so what he wrote must have sounded to him something like this. Mordre wall out, certain, it wall not file. We've been practicing up on spelling and pronunciation during the last few centuries, and have figured out that what Chaucer meant was, murder will out, certainly. It can't miss. And so it can't. It rarely misses in the theater. The season of 1940-41 was an excellent one for murder, and for comedy, and the best plays of the Broadway theater. Owen Davis had adapted a novel by Francis and Richard Lockridge, Mr. and Mrs. North, about an attractive young couple blundering their way into the detective business, and this play was a hit. Joseph Kesselring wrote another one about murder by the dozen, which he originally titled Bodies in Our Cellar. This turned out to be Arsenic and Old Lace, which had 1,444 performances. Only 6 other plays in the history of the Broadway stage have run longer. In the company on the first night of January 10, 1941 were Boris Karloff, Jean Adair, and other fine comedians. Now, in this Best Plays performance, we have Mr. Karloff and Donald Cook as 2 strangely different brothers. Mr. Cook currently is starring in the Broadway hit The Moon is Blue. Our company also includes Jean Adair and Edgar Staley from the original production, and Evelyn Varden is the nice little lady who likes to give all our guests elderberry wine. The performance is beginning. On a quiet street under the arching elms in the town of Brooklyn, New York, the old Brewster home stands in dignified and over-decorated glory. The gas mantles are still in the hall, although electricity was installed several years ago. It's tea time, and Miss Abby Brewster pours. The minister is visiting, and Miss Abby and her nephew Teddy are most attentive.
Won't you have another biscuit, Dr. Harper?
Oh, no, Miss Abby. I always eat too many of your biscuits just to taste the lovely jam.
But you haven't tried the quince. We always put a little apple in with it to take the tartness out. We'll send you over a jar. Teddy, more tea.
What? Oh, boy. Miss Abby, I've been meaning to speak to you about your nephew, Mortimer.
Oh, yes, I understand he's taking Elaine to the theater again tonight. Teddy, your brother Mortimer will be here a little later.
Delighted.
We're so happy it's Elaine that Mortimer takes to the theater with him.
Miss Abby, I'll be frank with you. I do not entirely approve your nephew's unfortunate connection with the theater. A drama critic is constantly exposed to the theater, and I fear some of them do develop an interest in it.
Well, not Mortimer. You need have no fear of that. Why, Mortimer hates the theater.
Really?
Oh, yes, he writes awful things about the theater. But you can't blame him, poor boy. He was so happy writing about real estate, which he really knew something about. And then they just made him take this terrible night position.
My.
But as he says, the theater can't last much longer anyway, and in the meantime, it's a living. Oh, now, who do you suppose that is? I'm coming.
Oh, hello, Miss Brewster.
How are you, Officer Brophy? Come in.
Thank you. Oh, afternoon, sir.
Sir, what news have you brought me?
Colonel, I have nothing to report.
Splendid. Thank you, sir. At ease.
We've come for the Christmas toys, Miss Brewster.
That's a splendid job you men do fixing toys for the children.
Yeah, well, it gives us something to do when we sit around the station. You get tired playing cards, then you start cleaning your gun, and the first thing you know, you've shot yourself in the foot.
Teddy, dear, go upstairs and get that big box from your Aunt Martha's room.
Delighted.
That's right, dear. Up the stairs. How is Mrs. Brophy today?
Pneumonia.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, she's much better now. A little weak still.
Well, I'm going to tell Sister Martha, and she'll bring you over some beef broth for her. And I'll be right back.
Oh, don't bother, Miss Abby. You've done so much for her already. Hey, Colonel, you promised not to do that.
I have to call a cabinet meeting to get the release of those supplies.
He used to do that in the middle of the night. The neighbors complain about him.
Oh, he's quite harmless.
Oh, sure. I suppose he does think he's Teddy Roosevelt. It's a shame a nice family like this hatching a cuckoo. The grandfather made $1 million. Patent medicine.
Well, Officer Brophy and Dr. Harper. How nice.
Hello, Miss Martha. I come to get the Christmas toys.
Oh, yes. Teddy's Army and Navy. They wear out.
Oh, you're back, Martha. How is poor Mr. Benitsky?
Well, dear, it's pretty serious, I'm afraid. The doctor was there. He's going to amputate in the morning.
Can we be present?
No, dear, I asked him. But he said it's against the rules of the hospital or something.
Oh, here's Teddy with the Army and Navy.
Oh, thanks, Colonel. This will make a lot of kids happy.
What's this? The USS Oregon?
Oh, no, Teddy, dear, put it back.
But the Oregon goes to Australia.
Thank you again, ma'am.
Pinch, halt!
Yes, sir, Colonel.
Dismissed.
Yes, sir.
I shall retire to field headquarters.
The blockhouse.
The stairs are over San Juan Hill.
Have you ever tried to persuade him he wasn't Teddy Roosevelt?
Oh, no.
Oh, he's so happy being Teddy Roosevelt.
Once a long time ago, remember, Martha, we thought if he could be George Washington, it might be a change for him.
But he stayed under his bed for days and just wouldn't be anybody.
And we'd so much rather he'd be Mr. Roosevelt than nobody.
Well, if he's happy, I'd better be running along.
Give our love to Elaine. And Dr. Harper, please don't think too harshly of Mortimer because he's a dramatic critic. Somebody has to do these things.
Goodbye.
Did you just have tea? Isn't it rather late?
Yes. And dinner's going to be late, too.
So? Why?
Teddy!
Yes, Aunt Abby?
Good news for you. You're going to Panama and dig another lock for the canal.
Delighted. That's bully. Just bully. I shall prepare at once for the journey. Oh.
Abby, you mean?
Yes, dear?
While I was out?
Yes, dear. I just couldn't wait for you. I didn't know when you'd be back, and Dr. Harper was coming.
But, dear, all by yourself. I'll run right downstairs and see.
Oh, no, there wasn't time.
Then where did you...
Martha, look in the window seat.
The window seat?
Go ahead, dear. Lift the lid.
Oh, Abby, isn't it just too delightful? And to think you managed it all by yourself.
We're almost home, Elaine. Now make up your mind. Where do you want to go for dinner?
No, I don't care, Mortimer, really.
Well, suppose we wait till after the show.
Well, that'll make it pretty late, won't it?
Not with a little stinker we're seeing tonight.
I was hoping it'd be a musical. They seem to have a humanizing effect on you, darling. After a serious play, we joined the proletariat in the subway, and I listened to that lecture on the drama. It wasn't until we saw a musical that you took me home in a taxi and noticed my legs.
Elaine, where could we be married in a hurry? Say, tonight?
Now, I'm afraid Father will insist on officiating.
Now, I'll bet your father could make even the marriage service sound pedestrian.
Are you by any chance writing a review of it?
Sorry, darling. Occupational disease. Yeah, here we are. The Brewster Mansion.
Thanks, darling. Is that Teddy at the door?
Yes.
Well, what's he doing in shorts and a sun helmet?
Hello, Mortimer.
How are you, Mr. President?
Bully, thank you. Just bully. What news have you brought me?
Just this. Mr. President, the country is squarely behind you.
Yes, I know. Isn't it wonderful? Well, goodbye.
Where are you off to, Teddy?
Panama.
Panama's the cellar. He digs locks for the canal down there.
Oh, you're very sweet with him.
Teddy always was my favorite brother.
Favorite? Were there more of you?
There's another brother, Jonathan. We don't talk about him. He left Brooklyn very early, by request. Jonathan was the kind of boy who liked to cut worms in two with his teeth.
What became of him?
I don't know. He wanted to become a surgeon like Grandfather, but he wouldn't go to medical school first, and his practice got him into trouble.
Oh. Well, goodbye, darling. I'll run over and say goodnight to Father before I go out with you. He likes to pray over me a little. Mm-hmm. I'll be right back. I'll cut across the cemetery.
Hello, Mortimer.
Oh, hello, Aunt Abby. Did you see my chapter on Thoreau? I want to show it to Elaine.
No, I haven't seen it, dear. We thought you'd like a little something before you leave. Martha's getting a piece of the Lady Baltimore cake. Dr. Harper was here to tea. He's concerned about Elaine going to the theater so much.
He loved tonight's horror. Murder Will Out.
Oh, dear. Well, I think I'll open a bottle of wine. It'll be nice with the cake.
Yeah, I can see it all now. The same old thing. When the curtain goes up... where is that chapter? The first thing you will see, maybe in the window seat, will be a dead body. Sure, just like this one. A dead body. A dead body.
There is a happy land far, far away. Lady Baltimore cake is so nice with a little wine, don't you think, dear?
Aunt Martha, Aunt Abby.
Yes, dear?
You told me you were going to make plans for Teddy to go to that sanitarium, Happy Dale.
Yes, dear. It's all arranged. Teddy has to sign the papers.
He's got to sign them right away. You've got to know sometime. I'm frightfully sorry, but I've got some shocking news for you. Teddy's killed a man.
Nonsense, dear.
There's a body in that window seat.
Yes, dear, we know.
Oh, well, you know?
Now, Mortimer, just forget about it. Forget you ever saw the gentleman.
Forget?
We never dreamed you'd peek.
But who is he?
His name is Hoskins, Adam Hoskins. That's really all I know about him, except that he's a Methodist.
Well, what's he doing here? What happened to him?
He died.
Martha, men don't just get into window seats and die.
No, he died first.
Well, how?
Oh, Mortimer, don't be so inquisitive. The gentleman died because he drank some wine with poison in it.
How did the poison get in the wine?
Well, we put it in the wine because it's less noticeable. When it's in tea, it has a distinct odor.
You put it in the wine?
Yes. And I put Mr. Hoskins in the window seat because Dr. Harper was coming.
Oh, so you knew what you'd done. You didn't want Dr. Harper to see the body.
Well, not at tea. That wouldn't have been very nice. Now you know the whole thing, Mortimer. Just forget about it. I do think Martha and I have the right to our own little secrets. Butter plates, Martha. Butter plates.
Yes, of course, dear. Oh, Abby. While I was out, I dropped in on Mrs. Schultz. She's much better. Yes, and she would like us to take Junior to the movies again.
Well, we must do that tomorrow or the next day.
Yes, but this time we'll go where we want to go. Junior's not going to drag me into another one of those scary pictures.
Aunt Martha, Aunt Abby, what are we going to do?
What are we going to do about what, dear?
There's a body in that window seat.
Yes, Mr. Hoskins.
Well, good heavens, I can't turn you over to the police. What am I going to do?
Well, for one thing, dear, stop being so excited.
And for pity's sake, stop worrying. We told you to forget the whole thing.
Forget? My dear Aunt Abby, can't I make you realize that something has to be done?
Now, Mortimer, you behave yourself. You're too old to be flying off the handle like this.
But you can't leave him there.
We don't intend to, dear.
No, Teddy's down in the cellar digging the rock.
You mean you're going to bury Mr. Hotchkiss in the cellar?
Hoskins, dear.
Oh, yes, dear. Of course, that's what we did with the others.
Oh, no. You can't bury Mr. Others.
The other gentleman.
When you say other, do you mean others? More than one other?
Oh, yes, dear. Let me see. This is 11, isn't it, Abby?
No, dear. This makes 12.
Oh, I think you're wrong, Abby. This is only 11.
No, dear, because I remember when Mr. Hoskins first came in, it occurred to me that he would make just an even dozen.
Well, you really shouldn't count the first one, dear.
Oh, well, I was counting the first one, so that makes it 12.
Now, hello. Hello? Al? Oh, my, it's good to hear your voice.
12.
11.
Al? Oh, checking up. Well, I know I didn't pick up the tickets. Yeah, I'm glad you called. Now, get a hold of George right away. He's got to review the play for me. Yeah. Yeah, I'll explain later. Now, let's see. Where were we? 12?
Yes. Addie thinks we ought to count the first one, and that makes it 12.
Well, all right. Now, all right. Who was the first one?
Mr. Midgley. He was a Baptist. He came here looking for a room.
He was such a lonely old man.
All his kith and kin were dead, and it left him so forlorn and unhappy.
And we felt so sorry for him.
And then when his heart attack came and he sat in that chair looking so peaceful, remember, Martha?
Mm-hmm.
We made up our minds then and there that if we could help other lonely old men to the same peace, we would.
He dropped dead right in that chair? Oh, how awful for you.
Oh, no, dear. Why, it was rather like old times. Your grandfather always used to have a cadaver or two around the place.
Well, I know, but...
You see, Teddy had been digging in Panama, and he thought Mr. Midgley was a yellow fever victim.
That meant he had to be buried immediately.
So we all took him down to Panama and put him in the lock.
And that's how it started?
Of course, we realized we couldn't depend on that happening again, so...
You remember those jars of poison that have been up on the shelves in Grandfather's laboratory all these years?
You know your Aunt Martha's knack for mixing things. You've eaten enough of her piccalilli.
Well, dear, for a gallon of elderberry wine, I take 1 teaspoonful of oxygen, then add half a teaspoonful of strychnine, and then just a pinch of cyanide.
Should have quite a kick.
Yes, as a matter of fact, one of our gentlemen found time to say, how delicious.
Yes, he did. Oh, well, we have to get things started in the kitchen for supper.
I wish you could stay, Mortimer.
I'm trying out a new recipe.
Couldn't eat a thing.
Hello, darling. I keep you waiting.
Oh, it's you. You run along home, Elaine. I'll call you up tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Well, you know I always call you every day or two.
Well, we're going to the theater tonight.
Oh, no, we're not. Elaine, something has come up. Now you run along home.
What's happened? If we're going to be married...
Married?
Have you forgotten that not 15 minutes ago you proposed to me?
I did? Oh, yeah. Well, as far as I know, that's still on. Now, you run along home.
Listen, you can't propose to me one minute and throw me out of the house the next.
Well, I'm not throwing you out of the house, darling. Will you get out of here?
Push.
Now, you get out, and I'll call you in a few days.
Mortimer!
Phew. Yeah. Hello, Al. What? George is in Bermuda. Oh, well, get somebody. Get the office boy. You know, the bright one, the one we don't like. All right, then, get the printer. He knows what I write. The third machine from the left. Yeah, but Al, he might turn out to be another John Chapman. Yeah, all right. All right.
Was that Elaine, dear?
Aunt Martha, Aunt Abby, sit down.
But Mortimer.
Sit down. There.
Well, dear?
You can't do things like that. Now, I don't know how to explain this to you, but it's not only against the law. It's wrong. It's not a nice thing to do. People wouldn't understand.
Abby, we shouldn't have told Mortimer.
Well, what I mean is, well, this has developed into a very bad habit.
Now, Mortimer, we don't try to stop you from doing things you like to do. I don't see why you should interfere with us.
Hello, Al. Oh, all right. Well, all right. I'll see the first act and tear it to pieces. All right.
I've said it for a while now.
Now, look, I've got to go to the theater, but before I go, will you promise me something?
Well, we have to know what it was first.
Will you do this for me?
What do you want us to do?
Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Don't let anyone in this house, and leave Mr. Hoskins right where he is.
Why? We were planning on holding services before dinner.
Services?
Certainly. You don't think we'd bury Mr. Hoskins without a full Methodist service, do you? Why, he was a Methodist.
Well, can't that wait till I get back?
Oh, then you could join us. Oh, you'll enjoy the service, especially the hymns. Remember, Martha, how beautifully Mortimer used to sing in the choir before his voice changed?
And remember, you're not going to let anyone in this house while I'm gone. Have you got some paper?
Here's some stationery. Will this do?
Oh, that'll be fine. I can save time if I write my review on the way to the theater.
So we need to be ready for anything. We do not know the grades below. So we need to be ready for anything.
Come in, Doctor.
I'm right behind you, Johnny.
Let's solve this mystery.
This is the home of my youth. As a boy, I couldn't wait to escape from this place. Now I'm glad to escape back into it.
Yeah, Johnny, it's a fine hideout.
The family must still live here. There's something so unmistakably Brewster about the Brewsters. I hope there's a fatted calf awaiting the return of the prodigal.
Yeah, I'm hungry. Oh, look, Johnny, a drink. Elderberry wine.
A good omen.
Here's to you, Johnny. Who's that?
Who are you? What are you doing here?
Why, Aunt Abby, Aunt Martha. It's Jonathan.
You get out of here.
But I'm Jonathan, your nephew, Jonathan.
Oh, no, you're not. You're nothing like Jonathan, so don't pretend you are. You just get out of here.
But, Aunt Abby, I am Jonathan. And this is Dr. Einstein.
And he's not Dr. Einstein either.
Not Dr. Albert Einstein, Dr. Herman Einstein.
His voice is like Jonathan's.
Have you been in an accident?
No. My face. Dr. Einstein is responsible for that. He changes people's faces.
Abby, I've seen that face before. Oh, do you remember when we took the little Schultz boy to the movies and I was so frightened? It was that face.
Easy, Johnny, easy. Now, don't worry, ladies. The last 5 years, I give Johnny 3 new faces.
This last one, well, I saw that picture too, just before I operate, and I was intoxicated.
You see, Doctor? You see what you've done to me? Even my own family.
Johnny, you're home. These are your lovely aunts. They know you.
Well, Jonathan, it's been a long time. Where have you been all these years?
Oh, England, South Africa, Australia. And the last 5 years, Chicago. Dr. Einstein and I were in business there together.
Oh, we were in Chicago for the World's Fair. Yes, we found Chicago awfully warm.
Yeah, it got hot for us, too.
Oh, well, it's wonderful to be in Brooklyn again. And you, Abby, Martha, you don't look a day older. Just as I remembered you. Sweet, charming, hospitable. And dear Teddy, I remember him so high. And did he get into politics? You know, Doctor, my little brother was determined to become president.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, it's very nice to have seen you again.
Bless you, Aunt Martha. It's good to be home again.
Well, Martha, we mustn't let what's on the stove boil over.
Oh, yes, of course. If you'll excuse us, Jonathan, unless you're in a hurry to go somewhere.
Martha!
Oh, yes, I'm coming, Abby.
Well, Johnny, where do we go from here? The police have pictures of that face. I got to operate on you right away. We got to find some place for Mr. Spinalzo, too.
Don't waste any worry on that rat.
But, Johnny, we got a hot stiff on our hands. You can't leave a dead body in a rumble seat. You shouldn't have killed him, Johnny. He was a nice fellow. He gives us a lift. And what happened?
He said I looked like Boris Karloff. That's your work, Doctor. You give that to me.
Johnny, we find a place somewhere. I bet you up quick. I got to eat first. I'm hungry. I'm weak.
Jonathan, we're glad you remembered us and took the trouble to come in and say hello. But you were never happy in this house, and we were never happy while you were in it. So we've just come in to say goodbye.
Well, Aunt Abby, I promised Dr. Einstein that if ever we came to Brooklyn, I'd bring him here for one of Aunt Martha's home-cooked dinners.
I'm sorry. I'm afraid there wouldn't be enough.
Oh, Abby, it's a pretty good size, Pablo. I think the least we can do
Thank you, Aunt Martha. We'll stay to dinner.
Well,
between two tribes.
And Jonathan, if you want to freshen up, why don't you use the washroom in Grandfather's old laboratory?
Is that still there?
Oh, yes.
These murals depict the same legend.
Well, we get a meal anyway.
Grandfather's laboratory. Doctor, a perfect operation.
This is similar to the statues we saw earlier.
I'll handle this. Why, this house will be our headquarters for years.
Depiction certainly suggests that the Zonai descended. This depiction certainly suggests that the Zonai descended from the heavens.
Nice, quiet house. And those aunts of yours, what sweet ladies. I love them already. I get the bags from the car.
Said that my ancestors were the first in the royal family.
And if they say no,
union with gods who had descended from the heavens.
Helpless old ladies.
These murals tell us what's mentioned with the Zonai, and if they are accurate, then the gods mentioned were the Zonai of that time. They must have forged a relationship with the Hylians of that time,
What makes this house
working
so
together to establish Hyrule.
So
The Kingdom of Hyrule. Stealing something of this figure power from the young. He seems to be stealing something of incredible power from the young kingdom. That's what I've read in the text. This will aligns with what I've read in the study. It is the demon king. And then
Richard
this
Lockridge,
shows the demon
co-author
king
of
is
Mr.
battle
and Mrs.
against
North, took a sporting view of
And a
arsenic
fierce
in Old
battle
Lake on that
against him.
January 1st night in 1941.
creature depicted
His own
really
play
does
was to
represent
open 2 nights later,
If the creature
but here he
depicted here
was,
really
the
does
drama critic of the
represent
New York
demon
Sun,
king,
bound to report truthfully on what he thought about arsenic. Lockridge wrote, "It is a noisy, preposterous, incoherent joy. You wouldn't believe that homicidal mania could be such great fun."
This mural must be the
This
great
was
war
gallant of
recorded
him,
in the royal
and accurate,
histories.
too.
Is the imprisoning war.
Now our second act of Arsenic in
This
Old
is the
Lake
imprisoning
begins.
war. And the events of the history. This is a huge discovery. strange.
Oh, Aunt Martha, you haven't lost any of your skill.
Why, thank you, Jonathan. And now I know you and Dr. Einstein both want to get where you're going.
But, my dear Aunt, I'm so full of that delicious dinner, I just can't move a muscle.
Yeah, it's so nice here.
Just what is this place?
After all, it's very late.
I found it. I found it.
Did you lose something, Teddy?
I found it. The story of my life. My biography. You see, here we are, both of us. President Roosevelt and General Goethals at Culebra Cut. That's me, General, and that is you.
My heart changed.
Well, you see, that picture hasn't been taken yet. We haven't even started work on the Culebra Cut. General, we will both go to Panama now to inspect the locks.
No, Teddy, not to Panama.
Panama's a long way off.
Nonsense. Just down in the cellar. The cellar?
Yes, we let him dig the Panama Canal in the cellar.
General, as President of the United States, I demand that we inspect the locks immediately.
Teddy, I think it's time you went to bed.
I beg your pardon? Who are you?
I'm Woodrow Wilson. Go to bed.
Oh, you're not Wilson. But your face is familiar. Let me see. Yeah. Perhaps I meet you later on my hunting trip to Africa. Yes. You look like someone I might meet in the jungle.
It's your brother, Jonathan, dear. He's had his face changed.
Oh, so that's it. A nature faker.
And perhaps you had better go to bed, Teddy. Jonathan and his friend have to go to their hotel.
General Goethals, inspect the canal. Inspect the canal.
All right, Mr. President. We go to Panama.
Bully. Follow me, General. Oh, have to wear a sun helmet. It's down south, you know.
Of course.
Debbie, I must correct your misapprehension. We have no hotel. We came directly here. This is my home.
But, Jonathan, you can't stay here.
Debbie, you have a most distinguished guest in Dr. Einstein. I'm afraid you don't appreciate his skill. In a few weeks, you'll see me looking like a very different Jonathan.
Oh, he can't operate on you here.
I forgot to tell you. We are turning Grandfather's laboratory into an operating room. We expect to be quite busy.
Hey, shut it down in the tent.
Dr. Einstein, my dear aunts have invited us to live with them.
Oh, you good. Well, you're sleeping here tonight.
Daddy, please get our room ready.
But
now.
Come along, Martha, dear.
Johnny, when I go down in the cellar, what do you think I find?
What?
The Panama Canal.
The Panama Canal.
It's the whole head is like 6 feet long and 4 feet wide.
Down there?
And it just took Mr. Spinaldo.
Rather a good joke on my aunt. They're living in a house with a body buried in the cellar. Come on, we'll bring it in through the window.
Poor dear Mr. Hoskins. He's been so patient in the window seat. I think Teddy had better get Mr. Hoskins downstairs right away.
Abby, I will not invite Jonathan to the funeral services.
Oh, no, we'll wait until they've gone to bed and then come down and hold it. Teddy, there's been another yellow fever victim.
Oh, dear me. This will be a shock to the General. But I'll have to tell him. Army regulations, you know.
No, Teddy, we must keep it a secret. Yes.
A state secret?
Yes, a state secret. Promise?
You have the word of the President of the United States. Cross my heart and hope to die.
Now, Teddy, you must take the poor man down to the canal.
And we'll come down later and hold services.
You may announce that the President will say a few words. Where is the poor devil?
He's in the window seat.
Oh, seems to be spreading. We've never had yellow fever there before. Well, up we go. He died for his country. Open the cellar door, Aunt Abby.
Johnny, are you out there? Wait. I'll lift up with this banana. Wait, I can't see it, Johnny. It's so dark.
What happened?
Someone left it in the seat open, I fell in.
Well, get out. Take this to Finaldo.
Oops. I lost the leg.
Here.
Yeah, somebody's coming.
Get him in the window seat. Quick.
All right, all right.
Give me a hand in through the window.
Here. Are you in?
Yes.
Miss Abby? Miss Martha? Miss Abby, it's so dark in here.
Who are you?
Elaine Harper, I live next door.
Turn on the lights, Doctor.
Yeah. Who are you? Where are Miss Abby and Miss Martha?
Perhaps we'd better introduce ourselves. This is Dr. Einstein.
It's Dr. Einstein. I suppose you're going to tell me you're Boris.
I'm Jonathan Brewster.
Oh, you're Jonathan?
Oh, you've heard of me.
Just this afternoon. Well, I'll be running along home now.
I think she's dangerous. She's seen us.
Baby, let her go, Johnny.
She saw us. Remember that.
Stay away from me. Take your hands off me. Oh, Teddy.
It's going to be a private funeral.
Teddy, tell these men who I am, please.
What? That's my daughter Alice.
Oh, no.
Doctor, your handkerchief.
Oh, help.
Get it out of the cellar, quick.
This way, come, please.
What's going on down there? What are you doing?
We caught a burglar, sneak thief. Go back to your room.
Look out, Johnny.
Let go of me.
Elaine?
Mortimer, where have you been?
At the Henry Miller Theater. Why, who's this?
This is your brother Jonathan, and this is Dr. Einstein.
Well, I know this isn't a nightmare, but what is it?
I've come back home, Mortimer.
Jonathan? Jonathan? What? You always were a horror, but you have to look like one.
Mortimer, have you forgotten the things I used to do to you when we were boys? Remember the times you were tied to the bedpost, the needles under your fingernails?
It is Jonathan. Oh, I remember. I remember you as the most vicious, venomous form of animal life I ever knew.
Now, don't you boys start quarreling again the minute you've seen each other.
Jonathan, you're not wanted here. Now get out.
Well, I'm sleeping here tonight in your room.
Johnny, maybe we better sit down here. On the window seat.
Window seat?
Window seat?
Yeah, the window seat.
Oh, the window seat. Well, maybe I'd better sleep down here.
Oh, we wouldn't trouble you. We insist on sleeping down here. Doctor, we'll go up and get our bags. You can have the room in a moment, Mortimer.
Mortimer,
What's the matter with you, dear?
I have almost been killed.
You've almost been...
I'm an exceptional.
Martha.
Oh, no, it was Jonathan. He mistook her for a sneak thief. Would you like some coffee, dear?
Oh, great idea. Coffee, sandwiches. I haven't had any dinner.
Get ready. Come, Andy.
No wine.
No.
I'm sorry I'm so late, Elaine, but it's after 12 and I... 12? Elaine, you've got to go home.
What? Mortimer, I want to know where I stand. Do you love me?
I love you very much, Elaine. I love you so much I can't marry you.
Have you suddenly gone crazy?
Oh, I don't think so, but it's just a matter of time. You see, insanity runs in my family. It practically gallops.
Now, just because Teddy is a...
No, it goes way back. The first Brewster, the one who came over on the Mayflower. You know, in those days, the Indians used to scalp the settlers. He used to scalp the Indians.
But, darling, this doesn't prove you're crazy. Well, look at your eyes. They're Brewsters, aren't they? And the sanest, sweetest people I've ever known.
Well, even they have their peculiarities.
Mortimer, you're not even looking at me. Come away from that window seat.
You're right away, Elaine. Another one. Elaine, you've got to go. Something very important has just come up.
Us? From where? We're here alone together.
Elaine, if you love me, will you get the hell out of here?
Mortimer, will you kiss me goodnight?
Why, of course, darling. Quickly. Well, good night, dear. I'll call you in a day or two.
Oh, you critic.
And Martha, and Abby, come in here.
Yes, dear. What is it? Oh, where's Elaine?
You promised me... Who is that in the window seat?
No one, dear.
Look. And it is not Mr. Hoskins.
Well, who can that be?
Are you trying to tell me you've never seen that man before?
I certainly am.
Now, Aunt Abby, don't try to get out of this. That's another of your gentlemen.
Mortimer, how can you say such a thing? That man is an imposter. And if he came here to be buried in our cellar, he's mistaken.
But, Aunt Abby, you put Mr. Hoskins in the window seat. Now, this man couldn't have just gotten the idea from him. By the way, where's Mr. Hoskins?
In Panama, waiting for the services, poor dear. We haven't had a minute with Jonathan in the house. Oh, dear, we always wanted to have a double funeral, but I will not read services over a total stranger.
A stranger? Aunt Abby, how can I believe you? There are 12 men down in the cellar, and you admit you poisoned them.
Yes, I did. But you don't think I'd stoop to telling a fib?
Jonathan, I want a word with you. Aunt Abby, Aunt Martha, I think Jonathan is leaving at once.
Oh, no, Martha.
Oh, yes, and you're taking your cold companion with you from the window seat.
The window seat?
You're my brother, and I'm going to give you a chance to get away. And if you don't take it, I'm going to call the police.
Mortimer, remember, what happened to Mr. Spinalzo can happen to you, too.
Oh, dear. Come in. Hi, Officer Brophy.
Oh, hello, Miss Martha, Miss Abby. I saw your lights on, and I thought there might be sickness in the family.
Oh, come in, officer. This is my brother, Jonathan.
Oh, hey, he looks familiar. Ain't I seen him somewhere? I don't think so.
It's too bad Jonathan can't stay, isn't it?
Well, if everything's all right.
Oh, don't go, officer. Stay here to have some coffee and a sandwich.
Well, if you say so.
We'll all go into the kitchen while Jonathan collects his things. All his things. Come along, officer.
Yeah, sure. Say, Mr. Brewster, I've been meaning to ask you about a play I've been writing.
Doctor, this affair between my brother and me has got to be settled.
Now, Johnny.
We're going to sleep right here tonight.
There's a cop in the kitchen and Mr. Spinalzo in the window seat.
That's all he's got on us. So we take Mr. Spinalzo down and we dump him in the bay and come right back here. Hide the suitcases in the cellar. Go on.
I think we should get out, Johnny.
For the observation of
come quick.
What is it?
That hole in the cellar. He got an ace in the hole.
Still here, Jonathan? I thought I told you.
We're staying.
You think I was bluffing? You think I won't tell Officer Brophy what's in the window seat?
Officer Brophy, if you tell Brophy what's in the window seat, I'll tell him what's in the cellar.
The cellar?
There's an elderly gentleman down there who seems to be very dead.
Well, what were you doing in the cellar?
Ah, what's he doing in the cellar?
No, thank you, ma'am. That's all the coffee I can drink. Oh, Mr. Brewster, I'd like to tell you the plot of that play.
No, Brophy, no, you can't stay here. You got to go and call in the briefing.
Yeah, but I want to tell you about this here play.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, all right. Later. How about the back room at Kelly's?
Fine. I'll meet you at Kelly's later.
Great, Mr. Brewster. I'll be there. Unless I drop dead.
Is that you, Mortimer?
It's Jonathan, Aunt Abby. Mortimer went out.
Where are you going?
To Panama to bury Mr. Spinalzo.
But he can't stay in our cellar.
There's a friend of Mortimer's downstairs waiting for him. He and Mr. Spinalzo will get along fine together. They're both dead.
They must be Mr. Hoskins.
You know about what's downstairs?
Of course we do, and he's no friend of Mortimer's. He's one of our gentlemen.
Your gentleman?
Besides, there's no room for Mr. Spinalzo. The cellar's crowded already.
Crowded? With what?
There are 12 graves down there now.
12 graves?
And that leaves very little room, and we're going to need it.
You mean you and Aunt Martha have murdered?
Murdered? Certainly not. It's one of our charities. So you just take your Mr. Spinalzo out of there.
You've done that here in this house, and you buried them down there?
Johnny, we've been chased all over the world. They stay right here in Brooklyn and do just as good as you do.
What?
You got 12, and they've got 12.
I've got 13.
No, Johnny, 12.
13. There's Mr. Spinalzo. Then the first one in London.
2 in Johannesburg, 1 in Sydney, 1 in Melbourne, 2 in San Francisco, 1 in Phoenix. The filling station. The 3 in Chicago and the 1 in South Bend. That makes 13.
But you can't count the one in South Bend. He died of pneumonia. He wouldn't have got pneumonia if I hadn't shot him. No. The old ladies are just as good as you are.
Oh, they are they? Well, that's easily taken care of. All I need is 1 more, that's all. Just 1 more. Now, here I am.
Mortimer, where have you been?
Yeah, I've been over getting a doctor's signature on Teddy's papers.
Mortimer, what is the matter with you running around getting papers signed at a time like this? Do you know what Jonathan is doing down there? He's putting Mr. Hoskins and Mr. Spinalzo in together.
Oh, well, let him. Is Teddy in his room?
Teddy won't be any help.
Well, you had to go and tell Jonathan about those 12 graves. If I can make Teddy responsible for those, I can protect you. Don't you see?
No, I don't see. And we pay taxes to have the police protect us. We'll call them.
Oh, but you can't. They'll find out about Mr. Hoskins and the other 12 gentlemen.
Mortimer, I don't think the police would pry into our private affairs if we asked them not to.
No, you can't do this. I won't let you.
Well, if Jonathan and Mr. Spinalzo are not out of this house by morning, we're going to call the police.
Mr. Hoskins and Mr. Spinalzo all put away neat and tidy. We're all done.
You're forgetting, Doctor. My brother, Morton.
Oh, I'm trying that. Tonight, and we really do that tomorrow.
Tonight.
No,
Now.
Please, I'm tired. Tomorrow I got to operate. Tonight we go to bed.
Doctor, it's going to be done tonight.
Honey, I know that look. Okay. But it's a quick way, huh? It's a quick, like in London.
No, Doctor. This calls for something special. I think perhaps from Melbourne.
Johnny, no, not that. 2 hours. When it was all over, the fellow in London was just as dead as the fellow in Melbourne.
What's your instrument? We operate tonight, Doctor, on Brother Mortimer.
My bugle. Mortimer, hand me my bugle.
No, Mr. President, just sign these papers.
I cannot sign any proclamation without consulting my cabinet.
But this must be a secret.
A secret proclamation? How unusual.
Japan mustn't know until it's signed.
Oh, Japan, eh? I'll sign it right away. I'll take it into the closet. A secret proclamation has to be signed. In secret.
But at once, Mr. President.
I'll have to put on my signing clothes.
There was this room where you could like use the aperture.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sign it right away.
Close the door, Doctor. Now, won't you sit down, Mortimer? Chew on the handkerchief. It's important lace.
You all talking about you all talking rock star,
But every night I dreamed of you. In London I dreamed of you. In Melbourne I...
There's nothing to worry. There's nothing to worry. There's nothing to worry. That's not right. That's not right. Get over. That's not right.
That's why I'm going to remember this afternoon. That is the old lady.
What could you want?
Very well, Doctor. We'll drink to Mortimer. To my dear dead brother. Idiot. He comes next.
No, not Teddy. That's where I stop. I draw the line at Teddy.
Now we've got to work fast.
Yeah, I have to quickly.
Doctor, one quick twist of the silk handkerchief.
Hey, the colonel's got to stop blowing that horn.
It's all right, officer.
You're taking the bugle away.
We promised the neighbors he wouldn't do that anymore. Oh, hey, Mr. Brewster. Why are you all tied up?
He was explaining the play he saw tonight. That's what happened to the fella in the play.
Oh, yeah? Gee, they practically stole that from the second act of my play. I'll tell you. No, wait a minute. I'm going to leave you this way. This time, Mr. Brewster, you listen to the plot. Well, it starts in my mother's dressing room where I was born. Only I ain't born yet. Get back to me, Mother. There she is, lying unconscious in her lingerie. The fiend is standing over her with an axe. There. How do you like it so far, huh, Doctor?
Well, put Johnny to sleep.
Oh, that's just the second act. Now the third act.
Johnny, wake up. I can't wake him.
What's going on?
Johnny, cop!
Brophy.
Oh, hi, Lieutenant. This is Mortimer Brewster. He's going to help me write me play.
Did you have to tie him up to make him listen? The whole precinct is out looking for you. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. Give me the phone and untie him.
Oh, gee, Mr. Brewster, I'll have to run through the third act quick.
Hello, Captain. Brophy's here. You don't have to worry. Yeah, we found him in the Brewster house, so you can call off the big manhunt. You want us to bring him in?
Manhunt? Oh, so I've been turned in, huh?
Oh, no, buddy, you got it wrong.
I suppose you and that fool-pigeon brother of mine will split the reward.
Reward? Grab him, Brophy.
You stay still, Mac.
Now I'll do some turning in. There are 13 bodies buried in our cellar.
Oh, yeah?
I'll show you. You come on down to the cellar with me. 13 bodies.
Maybe you better go down, Joe.
With him? Not me. He looks like Boris Karloff.
Get him off me, Rooney. Help! Get your head out of the way!
Well, what do you know about that? Imagine him claiming there was 13 bodies buried in the cellar.
Get him out of here.
Well, I'll have to drag him by the feet. I'll take him into the kitchen.
What a story. 13 bodies buried in the cellar.
Sir, there are 13 bodies buried in the cellar.
Who are you?
I'm President Roosevelt. What is this?
He's the one that blows the bugle.
Oh, dear me. Brother Jonathan, the yellow fever victim.
No, Colonel, he's a spy. We caught in the White House.
Well, will you get him out of here? Now, you. Didn't anybody untie you yet? Here, I'll do it.
Oh, now, Lieutenant, listen to me.
That crazy brother of yours has got to be put away. We don't want no more bugles blowing.
Oh, yes, I know. I have the papers right here. Teddy's going to Happy Dale. Now, about those 13 bodies.
Yeah. Can you imagine what would happen if that cockeyed story got around? And now he's starting a yellow fever scare. It's lucky I didn't fall for that story. 13 bodies.
I beg your pardon. I'm Mr. Witherspoon of Happy Dale. I believe I'm to pick up a gentleman.
Oh, Teddy.
Just finished my cabinet meeting. Yes, Mortimer?
Mr. President, I have very good news for you. Your term of office is over.
Oh, then I start on my hunting trip to Africa, don't I? Who's this? Trying to get into the White House before I've moved out?
Who, Teddy?
Taft!
Oh, this isn't Mr. Taft, Teddy. This is Mr. Witherspoon. He's your guide for Africa.
Oh, bully. Glad to meet you, sir. Aunt Martha and Abby, I'm on my way to Africa. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, if the safari comes, tell them to wait.
Aunt Abby, Aunt Martha, this is Mr. Witherspoon from Happy Dale. Teddy's going with him.
No, he is not. Not while we're alive.
The police want him to go. He blew his bugle again.
That's right, ma'am.
Well, if he goes, we're going with him. Yes, we won't be separated from Teddy.
But we can't take sane people at Happy Dale.
Look, will you settle this? There are still murders to be solved in Brooklyn.
Yes. Oh, are there?
Teddy's got to go. With the story he's telling, we'd have to dig up the cellar. He says there are 13 bodies buried down there.
But there are 13 bodies buried in our cellar.
I'll take your word for it, lady. I'm a busy man.
How about it, Witherspoon?
Well, they'd have to be committed.
Well, Teddy committed himself. Can't they commit themselves? Can't they sign the papers?
Certainly.
Oh, well, then, if we can go with Teddy, we'll sign the papers. Where are they? Yes, where are they?
Sign them up, Witherspoon. I want to get this cleaned up.
Oh, my, we've overlooked one thing. We're going to need the signature of the doctor.
The doctor? Oh, yes, the doctor. Dr. Einstein.
Me?
Come over here. We'd like you to sign some papers.
Yes, please, I must go.
No, just come right over here, Doctor. At one time last night, I thought Doctor was going to operate on me. Yes, Doctor, just come right over here. Sign right here, Doctor.
Yes, very well. Here. There.
Are you leaving us, Doctor?
I think I must go.
Oh, aren't you going to wait for Jonathan?
I don't think we're going to the same place.
There now. Everything's quite in order.
Well, I'm almost relieved. I'm really looking forward to going. The neighborhood here has really run down, so... Well, Mortimer, we're all ready to go now. The house will be yours, and we want you to live in it.
Oh, no, Aunt Abby. The house is too full of memories.
Oh, dear, but you'll need a house when you're married.
I'm afraid I can't ever marry Elaine or anybody.
Oh, there's something else, Mortimer. You signed our papers as next of kin.
Well, of course, why not?
But you see, dear, you're not really a Brewster.
Not a Brewster?
No, dear, your mother was a widow when she came to us as a cook, and you were born about 3 months afterwards. But she was such a good cook that we didn't want to lose her, so Brother married her.
I'm not really a Brewster?
Now, don't feel badly about it, dear.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's a tragedy, isn't it? Nobody knows who your father is. He might be anybody.
You're right. You're right. Well, isn't it wonderful? He might be anybody. I've got to tell Elaine. He might be anybody.
All right, Jonathan, come on.
I'm coming, Lieutenant.
Goodbye, Auntie. So this house is seeing the
Mr.
last
Darcy
of the
replied with
boat.
great intrepidity.
Well, I can't
Miss
bet on my
Elizabeth
record now, but neither can you. At least I have that satisfaction.
Replied Miss Bingley.
The score
I am all
stands
astonishment.
even. 12 to 12.
How long has she been such a favourite?
Jonathan always was a mean boy. Never could stand to see anybody get ahead of him. I wish we could show him he isn't so smart.
A lady's imagination is very rapid. It jumps from admiration to love, from love to matrimony in a moment.
Yes, Daddy?
I knew you would be wishing me joy.
Mr. Witherspoon,
Nay,
does your
seriously,
family live with you at Happy Dale?
I have no family.
Oh, that must make it very lonely for you.
I suppose it does.
Well, Martha? Mr. Witherspoon, I think at least we should offer you a glass of elderberry wine.
Elderberry wine? You grow your own elderberries?
No, but the cemetery is full of them.
Well, you don't see much elderberry wine nowadays. I thought I'd had my last glass of it.
Oh, no. Here it is.
Well, ladies, to a long life.
You have just heard the Best Plays production of Arsenic and Old Lace, starring Boris Karloff and Donald Cook. Now, here again is your host, drama critic John Chapman.
Joseph Kesselring never wrote a sequel to Arsenic and Old Lace, so we don't know what happened to Mr. Witherspoon. Perhaps someday the author will get around to it. In the meantime, we will have another best play for you next Sunday. It will be a rather strange and quite lovely piece, Dark of the Moon, which Howard Richardson and William Burney made from the old hillbilly folk song about Barbara Allen. Our star will be Alfred Drake. Let's all meet again next Sunday in the mountains called the Great Smokies. This is Chapman saying goodbye until then.
Arsenic and Old
Old Lace was transcribed and adapted for radio by Ernest Kenoy. Boris Karloff was Jonathan, Donald Cook was Mortimer. Evelyn Varden and Gina Dare appeared as Abby and Martha, Edgar Staley as Dr. Einstein, Wendell Holmes as Teddy Brewster, Joan Tompkins as Elaine, Arthur Maitland as Mr. Witherspoon, Ted Osborne as Reverend Harper, and Ed Latimer as Grovey. Best Plays is an NBC production, supervised by William Welch and directed by Edward King. This is Fred Collins speaking. Tonight, America's Press Conference. It's Meet the Press on NBC.
At 6:30. KFI Los Angeles. Listen, a new Packard four-door sedan costs just $29.20 plus tax and license, delivered right here in Southern California. Packard costs less for what you get than any other car. Up to 30 months to pay at Earl C. Anthony Incorporated, 1000 South Hope or 9130 Wilshire Boulevard.
Beginning is a very delicate time. Know then that it is the year 10,191. The known universe is ruled by the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV, my father. In this time, the most precious substance in the universe is the spice melange. The spice extends life. The spice expands consciousness. The spice is vital to space travel. The Spacing Guild and its navigators, who the spice has mutated over 4,000 years, use the orange spice gas, which gives them the ability to fold space. That is, travel to any part of the universe without moving. Oh yes, I forgot to tell you. The spice exists on only one planet in the entire universe. A desolate, dry planet with vast deserts. Hidden away within the rocks of these deserts are a people known as the Fremen, who have long held a prophecy that a man would come, a Messiah, who would lead them to true freedom. The planet is Arrakis, also known as June.
Begin by simply listening. Slow down and see just how peaceful today can be. Greetings, children. It is I, your obedient servant, Sebastian St. Smiles. Getting started with Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Thanks so much for swinging by. Wish us luck. Catch you guys on the flip side.
Lucky Strike. Welcome to the Lucky Strike program. You know, really, you'll have to excuse me for laughing, but I just spent the most wonderful half hour I've ever spent in my life. I was listening to my own radio show. And I don't know, I was so confident. I said so many funny things. Oh, I know what you're thinking. You know, but I really believe that a man should be honest. If there's anything is when a comedian is great and
North America.
I've never met one like that, but I did. Round one. And I really do. You know, if any other comedian has a bad show, I'm the first one to admit it. Big enough for me. Unfortunately, we had to postpone because there was a big mix-up. Even the producer married to be on
The spice extends life. The spice expands consciousness. The spice is vital to space travel. The space endured by the navigators through the spice hedge, mutated over 4,000 years, use the orange spice gas, which gives them the ability to fold space. That is, travel to any part of the universe without moving. Oh yes, I forgot to tell you. The spice exists on only one planet in the entire universe. A desolate, dry planet with vast deserts. Hidden away within the rocks of these deserts are a people known as the Planet, who have long held a prophecy that a man would come, a Messiah, who would lead them to true freedom. The planet is Arrakis, also known as June.
Reptiles are abhorrent because of their cold body, pale color, cartilaginous skeleton, filthy skin, fierce aspect, calculating eye, offensive smell, harsh voice, squalid habitation, and terrible venom, wherefore their creator has not exerted his powers to make many of them. Linus, 1797. You cannot recall a new form of life. Erwin Chargaff, 1972. Introduction. Chapter, The InGen Incident. The late 20th century has witnessed a scientific gold rush of astonishing proportions, the headlong and furious haste to commercialize genetic engineering. This enterprise has proceeded so rapidly with so little outside commentary that its dimensions and implications are hardly understood at all. Biotechnology promises the greatest revolution in human history. By the end of this decade, it will have outdistanced atomic power and computers in its effect on our everyday lives. In the words of one observer, biotechnology is going to transform every aspect of human life, our medical care, our food, our health, our entertainment, our very bodies. Nothing will ever be the same again. It's literally going to change the face of the planet. But the biotechnology revolution differs in three important respects from past scientific transformations. First, it is broad-based. America entered the atomic age through the work of a single research institution, at Los Alamos. It entered the computer age through the efforts of about a dozen companies. But biotechnology research is now carried out in more than 2,000 laboratories in America alone. 500 corporations spend $5 billion a year on this technology. Second, much of the research is thoughtless or frivolous. Efforts to engineer paler trout for better visibility in the stream, square trees for easier lumbering, and injectable scent cells so you'll always smell of your favorite perfume may seem like a joke, but they are not. Indeed, the fact that biotechnology can be applied to the industries traditionally subject to the vagaries of fashion, such as cosmetics and leisure activities, heightens concern about the whimsical use of this powerful new technology. Third, the work is uncontrolled. No one supervises it. No federal laws regulate it. There is no coherent government policy, in America or anywhere else in the world. And because the products of biotechnology range from drugs to farm crops to artificial snow, an intelligent policy is difficult. But most disturbing is the fact that no watchdogs are found among scientists themselves. It is remarkable that nearly every scientist in genetics research is also engaged in the commerce of biotechnology. There are no detached observers. Everybody has a stake. The commercialization of molecular biology is the most stunning ethical event in the history of science, and it has happened with astonishing speed. For 400 years since Galileo, science has always proceeded as a free and open inquiry into the workings of nature. Scientists have always ignored national boundaries, holding themselves above the transitory concerns of politics and even wars. Scientists have always rebelled against secrecy in research, and have even frowned on the idea of patenting their discoveries, seeing themselves as working to the benefit of all mankind. And for many generations, the discoveries of scientists did indeed have a peculiarly selfless quality. When, in 1953, two young researchers in England, James Watson and Francis Crick, deciphered the structure of DNA, their work was hailed as a triumph of the human spirit, of the centuries-old quest to understand the universe in a scientific way. It was confidently expected that their discovery would be selflessly extended to the greater benefit of mankind. Yet that did not happen. 30 years later, nearly all of Watson and Crick's scientific colleagues were engaged in another sort of enterprise entirely. Research in molecular genetics had become a vast, multi-billion-dollar commercial undertaking, and its origins can be traced not to 1953 but to April 1976. That was the date of a now famous meeting, in which Robert Swanson, a venture capitalist, approached Herbert Boyer, a biochemist at the University of California. The two men agreed to found a commercial company to exploit Boyer's gene splicing techniques. Their new company, Genentech, quickly became the largest and most successful of the genetic engineering startups. Suddenly it seemed as if everyone wanted to become rich. New companies were announced almost weekly, and scientists flocked to exploit genetic research. By 1986, at least 362 scientists, including 64 in the National Academy, sat on the advisory boards of biotech firms. The number of those who held equity positions or consultancies was several times greater. It is necessary to emphasize how significant this shift in attitude actually was. In the past, pure scientists took a snobbish view of business. They saw the pursuit of money as intellectually uninteresting, suited only to shopkeepers. And to do research for industry, even at the prestigious Bell or IBM labs, was only for those who couldn't get a university appointment. Thus the attitude of pure scientists was fundamentally critical toward the work of applied scientists, and to industry in general. Their long-standing antagonism kept university scientists free of contaminating industry ties, and whenever debate arose about technological matters, disinterested scientists were available to discuss the issues at the highest levels. But that is no longer true. There are very few molecular biologists and very few research institutions without commercial affiliations. The old days are gone. Genetic research continues, at a more furious pace than ever. But it is done in secret, and in haste, and for profit. In this commercial climate, it is probably inevitable that a company as ambitious as International Genetic Technologies, Inc., of Palo Alto, would arise. It is equally unsurprising that the genetic crisis it created should go unreported. After all, InGen's research was conducted in secret. The actual incident occurred in the most remote region of Central America, and fewer than 20 people were there to witness it. Of those, only a handful survived. Even at the end, when International Genetic Technologies filed for Chapter 11 protection in San Francisco Superior Court on the 5th of October, 1989, the proceedings drew little press attention. It appeared so ordinary. InGen was the third small American bioengineering company to fail that year, and the seventh since 1986. Few court documents were made public, since the creditors were Japanese investment consortia, such as Hamaguri and Denseika, companies which traditionally shun publicity. To avoid unnecessary disclosure, Daniel Ross, of Cohen, Swain and Ross, counsel for InGen, also represented the Japanese investors. And the rather unusual petition of the Vice Consul of Costa Rica was heard behind closed doors. Thus it is not surprising that, within a month, the problems of InGen were quietly and amicably settled. Parties to that settlement, including the Distinguished Scientific Board of Advisors, signed a non-disclosure agreement, and none will speak about what happened, but many of the principal figures in the InGen incident are not signatories, and were willing to discuss the remarkable events leading up to those final 2 days in August 1989 on a remote island off the west coast of Costa Rica. Jurassic Park. Prologue. The bite of the raptor. The tropical rain fell in drenching sheets, hammering the corrugated roof of the clinic building, roaring down the metal gutters, splashing on the ground in a torrent. Roberta Carter sighed, and stared out the window. From the clinic, she could hardly see the beach or the ocean beyond, cloaked in low fog. This wasn't what she had expected when she had come to the fishing village of Bahia Anasco, on the west coast of Costa Rica, to spend 2 months as a visiting physician. Bobby Carter had expected sun and relaxation, after 2 grueling years of residency in emergency medicine at Michael Reese in Chicago. She had been in Bahia Anasco now for 3 weeks. And it had rained every day. Everything else was fine. She liked the isolation of Bahia Anasco, and the friendliness of its people. Costa Rica had one of the 20 best medical systems in the world, and even in this remote coastal village, the clinic was well maintained, amply supplied. Her paramedic, Manuel Aric 6N, was intelligent and well trained. Bobby was able to practice a level of medicine equal to what she had practiced in Chicago. But the rain. The constant, unending rain. Across the examining room, Manuel cocked his head. "Listen," he said. "Believe me, I hear it," Bobby said. "No. Listen." And then she caught it, another sound blended with the rain, a deeper rumble that built and emerged until it was clear, the rhythmic thumping of a helicopter. She thought, they can't be flying in weather like this. But the sound built steadily, and then the helicopter burst low through the ocean fog and roared overhead, circled, and came back. She saw the helicopter swing back over the water, near the fishing boats, then case sideways to the rickety wooden dock, and back toward the beach. It was looking for a place to land. It was a big-bellied Psychoski with a blue stripe on the side, with the words InGen Construction. That was the name of the construction company building a new resort on one of the offshore islands. The resort was said to be spectacular, and very complicated. Many of the local people were employed in the construction, which had been going on for more than 2 years. Bobby could imagine it one of those huge American resorts with swimming pools and tennis courts, where guests could play and drink their daiquiris without having any contact with the real life of the country. Bobby wondered what was so urgent on that island that the helicopter would fly in this weather. Through the windshield she saw the pilot exhale in relief as the helicopter settled onto the wet sand of the beach. Uniformed men jumped out, and flung open the big side door. She heard frantic shouts in Spanish, and Manuel nudged her. They were calling for a doctor. 2 black crewmen carried a limp body toward her, while a white man barked orders. The white man had a yellow slicker. Red hair appeared around the edges of his Mets baseball cap. "Is there a doctor here?" he called to her, as she ran up. "I'm Dr. Carter," she said. The rain fell in heavy drops, pounding her head and shoulders. The red-halted man frowned at her. She was wearing cut-off jeans and a tank top. She had a stethoscope over her shoulder, the bell already rusted from the salt air. "Ed Regis. We've got a very sick man here, doctor." "Then you better take him to San Jose," she said. San Jose was the capital, just 20 minutes away by air. "We would, but we can't get over the mountains in this weather. You have to treat him here." Bobby trotted alongside the injured man as they carried him to the clinic. He was a kid, no older than 18. Lifting away the blood-soaked shirt, she saw a big slashing rip along his shoulder, and another on the leg. "What happened to him?" "Construction accident," Ed shouted. "He fell. One of the backhoes ran over him. The kid was pale, shivering, unconscious. Manuel stood by the bright green door of the clinic, waving his arm. The men brought the body through and set it on the table in the center of the room. Manuel started an intravenous line, and Bobby swung the light over the kid and bent to examine the wounds. Immediately she could see that it did not look good. The kid would almost certainly die. A big tearing laceration ran from his shoulder down his torso. At the edge of the wound, the flesh was shredded. At the center, the shoulder was dislocated, pale bones exposed. A second slash cut through the heavy muscles of the thigh, deep enough to reveal the pulse of the femoral artery below. Her first impression was that his leg had been ripped open. "Tell me again about this injury," she said. "I didn't see it," Ed said. "They say the backhoe dragged him." "Because it almost looks as if he was mauled," Bobby Carter said, probing the wound. Like most emergency room physicians, she could remember in detail patients she had seen even years before. She had seen 2 maulings. One was a 2-year-old child who had been attacked by a Rottweiler dog. The other was a drunken circus attendant who had had an encounter with a Bengal tiger. Both injuries were similar. There was a characteristic look to an animal attack. "Mauled," Ed said. No. It was a backhoe, believe me." Ed licked his lips as he spoke. He was edgy, acting as if he had done something wrong. Bobby wondered why. If they were using inexperienced local workmen on the resort construction, they must have accidents all the time. Manuel said, "Do you want lavage?" "Yes," she said. "After you block him." She bent lower, probed the wound with her fingertips. If an earth mover had rolled over him, dirt would be forced deep into the wound. But there wasn't any dirt, just a slippery, slimy foam. And the wound had a strange odor, a kind of rotten stench, a smell of death and decay. She had never smelled anything like it before. How long ago did this happen? An hour. Again she noticed how tense Ed Regis was. He was one of those eager, nervous types. And he didn't look like a construction foreman. More like an executive. He was obviously out of his depth. Bobby Carter turned back to the injuries. Somehow she didn't think she was seeing mechanical trauma. It just didn't look right. No soil contamination of the wound site, and no crush injury component. Mechanical trauma of any sort, an auto injury, a factory accident, almost always had some component of crushing. But here there was none. Instead, the man's skin was shredded, ripped across his shoulder, and again across his thigh. It really did look like a maul. On the other hand, most of the body was unmarked, which was unusual for an animal attack. She looked again at the head, the arms, the hands. The hands. She felt a chill when she looked at the kid's bands. There were short slashing cuts on both palms, and bruises on the wrists and forearms. She had worked in Chicago long enough to know what that meant. "All right," she said. "Wait outside." "Why?" Ed said, alarmed. He didn't like that. "Do you want me to help him, or not?" she said, and pushed him out the door and closed it on his face. She didn't know what was going on, but she didn't like it. Manuel hesitated. "I continue to wash." "Yes," she said. She reached for her little Olympus point and shoot. She took several snapshots of the injury, shifting her light for a better view. It really did look like bites, she thought. Then the kid groaned, and she put her camera aside and bent toward him. His lips moved, his tongue thick. "Raptor," he said. "Lo sa raptor." At those words, Manuel froze, stepped back in horror. "What does it mean?" Bobby said. Manuel shook his head. "I do not know, doctor." "Lo sa raptor no es español." "No." It sounded to her like Spanish. "Then please continue to wash him." "No, doctor." He wrinkled his nose. "Bad smell." And he crossed himself. Bobby looked again at the slippery foam streaked across the wound. She touched it, rubbing it between her fingers. It seemed almost like saliva. The injured boy's lips moved. "Raptor," he whispered. In a tone of horror, Manuel said, "It bit him." "What bit him?" "Raptor." "What's a raptor?" "It means hupia." Bobby frowned. The Costa Ricans were not especially superstitious, but she had heard the Hupia mentioned in the village before. They were said to be night ghosts, faceless vampires who kidnapped small children. According to the belief, the Hupia had once lived in the mountains of Costa Rica, but now inhabited the islands offshore. Manuel was backing away, murmuring and crossing himself. "It is not normal, this smell," he said. "It is the Hupia." Bobby was about to order him back to work when the injured youth opened his eyes and sat straight up on the table. Manuel shrieked in terror. The injured boy moaned and twisted his head, looking left and right with wide staring eyes, and then he explosively vomited blood. He went immediately into convulsions, his body vibrating, and Bobby grabbed for him but he shuddered off the table onto the concrete floor. He vomited again. There was blood everywhere. Ed opened the door, saying, "What the hell's happening?" And when he saw the blood he turned away, his hand to his mouth. Bobby was grabbing for a stick to put in the boy's clenched jaws, but even as she did it she knew it was hopeless, and with a final spastic jerk he relaxed and lay still. She bent to perform mouth-to-mouth, but Manuel grabbed her shoulder fiercely, pulling her back. "No," he said. "The Hupia will cross over. Manuel, for God's sake. No." He stared at her fiercely. "No. You do not understand these things." Bobby looked at the body on the ground and realized that it didn't matter, there was no possibility of resuscitating him. Manuel called for the men, who came back into the room and took the body away. Ed appeared, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, muttering, "I'm sure you did all you could," and then she watched as the men took the body away, back to the helicopter, and it lifted thunderously up into the sky. "It is better," Manuel said. Bobby was thinking about the boy's hands. They had been covered with cuts and bruises, in the characteristic pattern of defense wounds. She was quite sure he had not died in a construction accident, he had been attacked, and he had held up his bands against his attacker. "Where is this island they've come from?" she asked. "In the ocean. Perhaps 120 miles offshore, pretty far for a resort," she said. Manuel watched the helicopter. "I hope they never come back." Well, she thought, at least she had pictures. But when she turned back to the table, she saw that her camera was gone. The rain finally stopped later that night. Alone in the bedroom behind the clinic, Bobby thumbed through her tattered paperback Spanish dictionary. The boy had said raptor and, despite Manuel's protests, she suspected it was a Spanish word. Sure enough, she found it in her dictionary. It meant ravisher or abductor. That gave her pause. The sense of the word was suspiciously close to the meaning of Hupia. Of course she did not believe in the superstition. And no ghost had cut those hands. What had the boy been trying to tell her? From the next room, she heard groans. One of the village women was in the first stage of labor, and Elena Morales, the local midwife, was attending her. Bobby went into the clinic room and gestured to Elena to step outside for a moment. "Elena." "Sigh, doctor. Do you know what is a raptor?" Elena was gray-haired and 60, a strong woman with a practical, no-nonsense air. In the night, beneath the stars, she frowned and said, "Raptor." "Yes, you know this word." Sigh. Elena nodded. "It means a person who comes in the night and takes away a child. A kidnapper." "Yes. A Hupia." Her whole manner changed. "Do not say this word, doctor." "Why not?" "Do not speak of Hupia now," Elena said firmly, nodding her head toward the groans of the laboring woman. "It is not wise to say this word now." "But does a raptor bite and cut his victims?" "Bite and cut?" Elena said, puzzled. "No, doctor. Nothing like this. A raptor is a man who takes a new baby." She seemed irritated by the conversation, impatient to end it. Elena started back toward the clinic. "I will call to you when she is ready, doctor. I think 1 hour more, perhaps 2. Bobby looked at the stars, and listened to the peaceful lapping of the surf at the shore. In the darkness she saw the shadows of the fishing boats anchored offshore. The whole scene was quiet, so normal, she felt foolish to be talking of vampires and kidnapped babies. Bobby went back to her room, remembering again that Manuel had insisted it was not a Spanish word. Out of curiosity, she looked in the little English dictionary, and to her surprise she found the word there, too. Raptor /N, derivative of L raptor plunderer, FR. Raptus, bird of prey. First iteration. Picture. At the earliest drawings of the fractal curve, few clues to the underlying mathematical structure will be seen. Ian Malcolm. Almost paradise. Mike Bowman whistled cheerfully as he drove the Land Rover through the Cabo Blanco Biological Reserve, on the west coast of Costa Rica. It was a beautiful morning in July, and the road before him was spectacular, hugging the edge of a cliff, overlooking the jungle and the blue Pacific. According to the guidebooks, Cabo Blanco was unspoiled wilderness, almost a paradise. Seeing it now made Bowman feel as if the vacation was back on track. Bowman, a 36-year-old real estate developer from Dallas, had come to Costa Rica with his wife and daughter for a 2-week holiday. The trip had actually been his wife's idea. For weeks Ellen had filled his ear about the wonderful national parks of Costa Rica, and how good it would be for Tina to see them. Then, when they arrived, it turned out Ellen had an appointment to see a plastic surgeon in San Jose. That was the first Mike Bowman had heard about the excellent and inexpensive plastic surgery available in Costa Rica, and all the luxurious private clinics in San Jose. Of course they'd had a huge fight. Mike felt she'd lied to him, and she had. And he put his foot down about this plastic surgery business. Anyway, it was ridiculous. Ellen was only 30, and she was a beautiful woman. Hell, she'd been homecoming queen her senior year at Rice, and that was not even 10 years earlier. But Ellen tended to be insecure, and worried. And it seemed as if in recent years she had mostly worried about losing her looks. That, and everything else. The Land Rover bounced in a pothole, splashing mud. Seated beside him, Ellen said, "Mike, are you sure this is the right road? We haven't seen any other people for hours." "There was another car 15 minutes ago," he reminded her. "Remember, the blue one? Going the other way." "Darling, you wanted a deserted beach," he said, "and that's what you're going to get." Ellen shook her head doubtfully. "I hope you're right." "Yeah, Dad, I hope you're right," said Christina, from the back seat. She was 8 years old. "Trust me, I'm right." He drove in silence a moment. "It's beautiful, isn't it? Look at that view. It's beautiful." "It's okay," Tina said. Ellen got out a compact and looked at herself in the mirror, pressing under her eyes. She sighed, and put the compact away. The road began to descend, and Mike Bowman concentrated on driving. Suddenly a small black shape flashed across the road and Tina shrieked, "Look! Look!" Then it was gone, into the jungle. "What was it?" Ellen asked. "A monkey 7. Maybe a squirrel," monkey Bowman said. "Can I count it?" Tina said, taking her pencil out. She was keeping a list of all the animals she had seen on her trip, as a project for school. "I don't know," Mike said doubtfully. Tina consulted the pictures in the guidebook. "I don't think it was a squirrel monkey," she said. "I think it was just another howler." They had seen several howler monkeys already on their trip. "Hey," she said, more brightly. "According to this book, the beaches of Cabo Blanco are frequented by a variety of wildlife, including howler and white-faced monkeys, three-toed sloths, and cotimundis. You think we'll see a three-toed sloth, Dad?" "I bet we do." "Really? Just look in the mirror." "Very funny, Dad." The road sloped downward through the jungle, toward the ocean. Mike Bowman felt like a hero when they finally reached the beach, a 2-mile crescent of white sand, utterly deserted. He parked the Land Rover in the shade of the palm trees that fringed the beach, and got out the box lunches. Ellen changed into her bathing suit, saying, "Honestly, I don't know how I'm going to get this weight off." "You look great, Honorable." Actually, he felt that she was too thin, but he had learned not to mention that. Tina was already running down the beach. "Don't forget you need your sunscreen," Ellen called. Later Tina shouted, over her shoulder, "I'm going to see if there's a sloth." Ellen Bowman looked around at the beach, and the trees. "You think she's all right?" "Honey, there's nobody here for miles," Mike said. "What about snakes?" "Oh, for God's sake," Mike Bowman said. "There's no snakes on a beach." "Well, there might be." "Honey," he said firmly. Snakes are cold-blooded. They're reptiles. They can't control their body temperature. It's 90 degrees on that sand. If a snake came out, it'd be cooked. Believe me. There's no snakes on the beach. He watched his daughter scampering down the beach, a dark spot on the white sand. Let her go. Let her have a good time. He put his arm around his wife's waist. Tina ran until she was exhausted, and then she threw herself down on the sand and gleefully rolled to the water's edge. The ocean was warm, and there was hardly any surf at all. She sat for a while, catching her breath, and then she looked back toward her parents and the car, to see how far she had come. Her mother waved, beckoning her to return. Tina waved back cheerfully, pretending she didn't understand. Tina didn't want to put sunscreen on. And she didn't want to go back and hear her mother talk about losing weight. She wanted to stay right here, and maybe see a sloth. Tina had seen a sloth 2 days earlier at the zoo in San Jose. It looked like a Muppets character, and it seemed harmless. In any case, it couldn't move fast, she could easily outrun it. Now her mother was calling to her, and Tina decided to move out of the sun, back from the water, to the shade of the palm trees. In this part of the beach, the palm trees overhung a gnarled tangle of mangrove roots, which blocked any attempt to penetrate inland. Tina sat in the sand and kicked the dried mangrove leaves. She noticed many bird tracks in the sand. Costa Rica was famous for its birds. The guidebooks said there were 3 times as many birds in Costa Rica as in all of America and Canada. In the sand, some of the 3-toed bird tracks were small, and so faint they could hardly be seen. Other tracks were large, and cut deeper in the sand. Tina was looking idly at the tracks when she heard a chirping, followed by rustling in the mangrove thicket. Did sloths make a chirping sound? Tina didn't think so, but she wasn't sure. The chirping was probably some ocean bird. She waited quietly, not moving, hearing the rustling again, and finally she saw the source of the sounds. A few yards away, a lizard emerged from the mangrove roots and peered at her. Tina held her breath. A new animal for her list. The lizard stood up on its hind legs, balancing on its thick tail, and stared at her. Standing like that, it was almost a foot tall, dark green with brown stripes along its back. Its tiny front legs ended in little lizard fingers that wiggled in the air. The lizard cocked its head as it looked at her. Tina thought it was cute. Sort of like a big salamander. She raised her hand and wiggled her fingers back. The lizard wasn't frightened. It came toward her, walking upright on its hind legs. It was hardly bigger than a chicken, and like a chicken it bobbed its head as it walked. Tina thought it would make a wonderful pet. She noticed that the lizard left 3-toed tracks that looked exactly like bird tracks. The lizard came closer to Tina. She kept her body still, not wanting to frighten the little animal. She was amazed that it would come so close, but she remembered that this was a national park. All the animals in the park would know that they were protected. This lizard was probably tame. Maybe it even expected her to give it some food. Unfortunately, she didn't have any. Slowly, Tina extended her hand, palm open, to show she didn't have any food. The lizard paused, cocked his head, and chirped. "Sorry," Tina said. "I just don't have anything." And then, without warning, the lizard jumped up onto her outstretched hand. Tina could feel its little toes pinching the skin of her palm, and she felt the surprising weight of the animal's body pressing her arm down. And then the lizard scrambled up her arm, toward her face. "I just wish I could see her," Ellen Bowman said, squinting in the sunlight. "That's all. Just see her." "I'm sure she's fine," Mike said, picking through the box lunch packed by the hotel. There was unappetizing grilled chicken, and some kind of a meat-filled pastry. Not that Ellen would cut any of it. "You don't think she'd leave the beach?" Ellen said. "No, hon, I don't. I feel so isolated here," Ellen said. "I thought that's what you wanted," Mike Bowman said. "I did." "Well, then, what's the problem?" "I just wish I could see her," is all Ellen said. Then, from down the beach, carried by the wind, they heard their daughter's voice. She was screaming. "Puntarinus. I think she is quite comfortable now," Dr. Cruz said, lowering the plastic flap of the oxygen tent around Tina as she slept. Mike Bowman sat beside the bed, close to his daughter. Mike thought Dr. Cruz was probably pretty capable. He spoke excellent English, the result of training at medical centers in London and Baltimore. Dr. Cruz radiated competence, and the Clinica Santa Maria, the modern hospital in Punta Arenas, was spotless and efficient. But, even so, Mike Bowman felt nervous. There was no getting around the fact that his only daughter was desperately ill, and they were far from home. When Mike had first reached Tina, she was screaming hysterically. Her whole left arm was bloody, covered with a profusion of small bites, each the size of a thumbprint. And there were flecks of sticky foam on her arm, like a foamy saliva. He carried her back down the beach. Almost immediately her arm began to redden and swell. Mike would not soon forget the frantic drive back to civilization, the four-wheel drive Land Rover slipping and sliding up the muddy track into the hills, while his daughter screamed in fear and pain, and her arm grew more bloated and red. Long before they reached the park boundaries, the swelling had spread to her neck, and then Tina began to have trouble breathing. "She'll be all right now," Ellen said, staring through the plastic oxygen tent. "I believe so," Dr. Cruz said. "I have given her another dose of steroids, and her breathing is much easier. And you can see the edema in her arm is greatly reduced." Mike Bowman said, "About those bites. We have no identification yet," the doctor said. "I myself haven't seen bites like that before. But you'll notice they are disappearing. It's already quite difficult to make them out. Fortunately, I have taken photographs for reference. And I have washed her arm to collect some samples of the sticky saliva, one for analysis here, a second to send to the labs in San Jose, and the third we will keep frozen in case it is needed. Do you have the picture she made?" "Yes," Mike Bowman said. He handed the doctor the sketch that Tina had drawn, in response to questions from the admitting officials. "This is the animal that bit her," Dr. Cruz said, looking at the picture. "Yes," Mike Bowman said. "She said it was a green lizard, the size of a chicken or a crow." "I don't know of such a lizard," the doctor said. "She has drawn it standing on its hind legs." "That's right," Mike Bowman said. "She said it walked on its hind legs." Dr. Cruz frowned. He stared at the picture a while longer. "I am not an expert. I've asked for Dr. Gutierrez to visit us here. He is a senior researcher at the Reserva Biologica de Carrera, which is across the bay. Perhaps he can identify the animal for us." "Isn't there someone from Cabo Blanco?" Bowman asked. "That's where she was bitten." "Unfortunately not," Dr. Cruz said. "Cabo Blanco has no permanent staff, and no researcher has worked there for some time. You were probably the first people to walk on that beach in several months. But I am sure you will find Dr. Gutierrez to be knowledgeable." Dr. Gutierrez turned out to be a bearded man wearing khaki shorts and shirt. The surprise was that he was American. He was introduced to the Bowmans, saying in a soft southern accent, "Mr. and Mrs. Bowman, how you doing? Nice to meet you," and then explaining that he was a field biologist from Yale who had worked in Costa Rica for the last 5 years. Marty Gutierrez examined Tina thoroughly, lifting her arm gently, peering closely at each of the bites with a penlight, then measuring them with a small pocket ruler. After a while, Gutierrez stepped away, nodding to himself as if he had understood something. He then inspected the Polaroids, and asked several questions about the saliva, which Cruz told him was still being tested in the lab. Finally he turned to Mike Bowman and his wife, waiting tensely. "I think Tina's going to be fine. I just want to be clear about a few details," he said, making notes in a precise band. "Your daughter says she was bitten by a green lizard, approximately 1 foot high, which walked upright onto the beach from the mangrove swamp." "That's right, yes. And the lizard made some kind of a vocalization. Tina said it chirped, or squeaked. Like a mouse, would you say?" "Yes." "Well, then," Dr. Gutierrez said, "I know this lizard." He explained that, of the 6,000 species of lizards in the world, no more than a dozen species walked upright. Of those species, only 4 were found in Latin America. And judging by the coloration, the lizard could be only one of the 4. "I am sure this lizard was a Basiliscus amoratus, a striped basilisk lizard, found here in Costa Rica and also in Honduras. Standing on their hind legs, they are sometimes as tall as a foot." "Are they poisonous?" "No, Mrs. Bowman. Not at all. Gutierrez explained that the swelling in Tina's arm was an allergic reaction. According to the literature, 14% of people are strongly allergic to reptiles, he said, and your daughter seems to be one of them. She was screaming. She said it was so painful. Probably it was, Gutierrez said. Reptile saliva contains serotonin, which causes tremendous pain. He turned to Cruz. Her blood pressure came down with antihistamines. Yes, Cruz said. Promptly. Serotonin, Gutierrez said. No question. Still, Ellen Bowman remained uneasy. But why would a lizard bite her in the first place? Lizard bites are very common, Gutierrez said. Animal handlers in zoos get bitten all the time. And just the other day I heard that a lizard had bitten an infant in her crib in Amaloya, about 60 miles from where you were. So bites do occur. I'm not sure why your daughter had so many bites. What was she doing at the time? Nothing. She said she was sitting pretty still, because she didn't want to frighten it away. Sitting pretty still, Gutierrez said, frowning. He shook his head. Well, I don't think we can say exactly what happened. Wild animals are unpredictable. And what about the foamy saliva on her arm? Ellen said. I keep thinking about rabies. No, Dr. Gutierrez said. A reptile can't carry rabies, Mrs. Bowman. Your daughter has suffered an allergic reaction to the bite of a basilisk lizard. Nothing more serious. Mike Bowman then showed Gutierrez the picture that Tina had drawn. Gutierrez nodded. I would accept this as a picture of a basilisk lizard, he said. A few details are wrong, of course. The neck is much too long, and she has drawn the hind legs with only 3 toes instead of 5. The tail is too thick, and raised too high. But otherwise this is a perfectly serviceable lizard of the kind we are talking about. But Tina specifically said the neck was long, Ellen Bowman insisted. And she said there were 3 toes on the foot. Tina's pretty observant, Mike Bowman said. I'm sure she is, Gutierrez said, smiling. But I still think your daughter was bitten by a common Bacillus amoratus, and had a severe herpetological reaction. Normal time course with medication is 12 hours. She should be just fine in the morning. In the modern laboratory in the basement of the Clinica Santa Maria, word was received that Dr. Gutierrez had identified the animal that had bitten the American child as a harmless basilisk lizard. Immediately the analysis of the saliva was halted, even though a preliminary fractionation showed several extremely high molecular weight proteins of unknown biological activity. But the night technician was busy, and he placed the saliva samples on the holding shelf of the refrigerator. The next morning, the day clerk checked the holding shelf against the names of discharged patients. Seeing that Bowman, Christina L. was scheduled for discharge that morning, the clerk threw out the saliva samples. At the last moment, he noticed that one sample had the red tag, which meant that it was to be forwarded to the university lab in San Jose. He retrieved the test tube from the waste basket, and sent it on its way. Go on. Say thank you to Dr. Cruz, Ellen Bowman said, and pushed Tina forward. Thank you, Dr. Cruz, Tina said. I feel much better now. She reached up and shook the doctor's band. Then she said, you have a different shirt. For a moment Dr. Cruz looked perplexed, then he smiled. That's right, Tina. When I work all night at the hospital, in the morning I change my shirt. But not your tie. No. Just my shirt. Ellen Bowman said, Mike told you she's observant. She certainly is. Dr. Cruz smiled and shook the little girl's band gravely. Enjoy the rest of your holiday in Costa Rica, Tina. I will. The Bowman family had started to leave when Dr. Cruz said, Tina, do you remember the lizard that bit you? Aha. You remember its feet? Aha. Did it have any toes? Yes. How many toes did it have? 3, she said. How do you know that? Because I looked, she said. Anyway, all the birds on the beach made marks in the sand with 3 toes, like this. She held up her hand, middle 3 fingers spread wide. And the lizard made those kind of marks in the sand, too. The lizard made marks like a bird. Aha, Tina said. He walked like a bird, too. He jerked his head like this, up and down. She took a few steps, bobbing her head. After the Bowmans had departed, Dr. Cruz decided to report this conversation to Gutierrez, at the biological station. I must admit the girl's story is puzzling, Gutierrez said. I have been doing some checking myself. I am no longer certain she was bitten by a basilisk. Not certain at all. Then what could it be? Well, Gutierrez said, let's not speculate prematurely. By the way, have you heard of any other lizard bites at the hospital? No, why? Let me know, my friend, if you do. Chapter, The Beach. Marty Gutierrez sat on the beach and watched the afternoon sun fall lower in the sky, until it sparkled harshly on the water of the bay, and its rays reached beneath the palm trees, to where he sat among the mangroves, on the beach of Cabo Blanco. As best he could determine, he was sitting near the spot where the American girl had been, 2 days before. Although it was true enough, as he had told the Bowmans, that lizard bites were common, Gutierrez had never heard of a basilisk lizard biting anyone. And he had certainly never heard of anyone being hospitalized for a lizard bite. Then, too, the bite radius on Tina's arm appeared slightly too large for a basilisk. When he got back to the Carrera station, he had checked the small research library there, but found no reference to basilisk lizard bites. Next he checked International Biosciences Services, a computer database in America, but he found no references to basilisk bites, or hospitalization for lizard bites. He then called the medical officer in Amaloya, who confirmed that a 9-day-old infant, sleeping in its crib, had been bitten on the foot by an animal the grandmother, the only person actually to see it, claimed was a lizard. Subsequently the foot had become swollen and the infant had nearly died. The grandmother described the lizard as green with brown stripes. It had bitten the child several times before the woman frightened it away. Strange, Gutierrez had said. No, like all the others, the medical officer replied, adding that he had heard of other biting incidents. A child in Vasquez, the next village up the coast, had been bitten while sleeping. And another in Puerto Sotero. All these incidents had occurred in the last 2 months. All had involved sleeping children and infants. Such a new and distinctive pattern led Gutierrez to suspect the presence of a previously unknown species of lizard. This was particularly likely to happen in Costa Rica. Only 75 miles wide at its narrowest point, the country was smaller than the state of Maine. Yet, within its limited space, Costa Rica had a remarkable diversity of biological habitats, seacoasts on both the Atlantic and the Pacific, 4 separate mountain ranges, including 12,000-foot peaks and active volcanoes, rainforests, cloud forests, temperate zones, swampy marshes, and arid deserts. Such ecological diversity sustained an astonishing diversity of plant and animal life. Costa Rica had 3 times as many species of birds as all of North America. More than 1,000 species of orchids. More than 5,000 species of insects. New species were being discovered all the time at a pace that had increased in recent years, for a sad reason. Costa Rica was becoming deforested, and as jungle species lost their habitats, they moved to other areas, and sometimes changed behavior as well. So a new species was perfectly possible. But along with the excitement of a new species was the worrisome possibility of new diseases. Lizards carried viral diseases, including several that could be transmitted to man. The most serious was central saurian encephalitis, or CSE, which caused a form of sleeping sickness in human beings and horses. Gutierrez felt it was important to find this new lizard, if only to test it for disease. Sitting on the beach, he watched the sun drop lower, and sighed. Perhaps Tina Bowman had seen a new animal, and perhaps not. Certainly Gutierrez had not. Earlier that morning, he had taken the air pistol, loaded the clip with ligamine darts, and set out for the beach with high hopes. But the day was wasted. Soon he would have to begin the drive back up the hill from the beach. He did not want to drive that road in darkness. Gutierrez got to his feet and started back up the beach. Farther along, he saw the dark shape of a howler monkey, ambling along the edge of the mangrove swamp. Gutierrez moved away, stepping out toward the water. If there was one howler, there would probably be others in the trees overhead. Arid howlers tended to urinate on intruders. But this particular howler monkey seemed to be alone, and walking slowly, and pausing frequently to sit on its haunches. The monkey had something in its mouth. As Gutierrez came closer, he saw it was eating a lizard. The tail and the hind legs drooped from the monkey's jaws. Even from a distance, Gutierrez could see the brown stripes against the green. Gutierrez dropped to the ground and aimed the pistol. The howler monkey, accustomed to living in a protected reserve, stared curiously. He did not run away, even when the first dart whined harmlessly past him. When the second dart struck deep in the thigh, the howler shrieked in anger and surprise, dropping the remains of its meal as it fled into the jungle. Gutierrez got to his feet and walked forward. He wasn't worried about the monkey. The tranquilizer dose was too small to give it anything but a few minutes of dizziness. Already he was thinking of what to do with his new find. Gutierrez himself would write the preliminary report, but the remains would have to be sent back to the United States for final positive identification, of course. To whom should he send it? The acknowledged expert was Edward H. Simpson, Emeritus Professor of Zoology at Columbia University, in New York. An elegant older man with swept-back white hair, Simpson was the world's leading authority on lizard taxonomy. Probably, Marty thought, he would send his lizard to Dr. Simpson. Chapter, New York. Dr. Richard Stone, head of the Tropical Diseases Laboratory of Columbia University Medical Center, often remarked that the name conjured up a grander place than it actually was. In the early 20th century, when the laboratory occupied the entire fourth floor of the Biomedical Research Building, crews of technicians worked to eliminate the scourges of yellow fever, malaria, and cholera. But medical successes and research laboratories in Nairobi and São Paulo had left the TDL a much less important place than it once was. Now a fraction of its former size, it employed only 2 full-time technicians, and they were primarily concerned with diagnosing illnesses of New Yorkers who had traveled abroad. The lab's comfortable routine was unprepared for what it received that morning. "Oh, very nice," the technician in the Tropical Diseases Laboratory said, as she read the customs label. Partially masticated fragment of unidentified Costa Rican lizard. She wrinkled her nose. "This one's all yours, Dr. Stone." Richard Stone crossed the lab to inspect the new arrival. "Is this the material from Ed Simpson's lab?" "Yes," she said. "But I don't know why they'd send a lizard to us." His secretary called Stone said. "Simpson's on a field trip in Borneo for the summer, and because there's a question of communicable disease with this lizard, she asked our lab to take a look at it. Let's see what we've got." The white plastic cylinder was the size of a half-gallon milk container. It had locking metal latches and a screw top. It was labeled International Biological Specimen Container and plastered with stickers and warnings in 4 languages. The warnings were intended to keep the cylinder from being opened by suspicious customs officials. Apparently the warnings had worked. As Richard Stone swung the big light over, he could see the seals were still intact. Stone turned on the air handlers and pulled on plastic gloves and a face mask. After all, the lab had recently identified specimens contaminated with Venezuelan equine fever, Japanese bee encephalitis, Kissineur forest virus, Langat virus, and Myo. Then he unscrewed the top. There was the hiss of escaping gas, and white smoke boiled out. The cylinder turned frosty cold. Inside he found a plastic Ziploc sandwich bag, containing something green. Stone spread a surgical drape on the table and shook out the contents of the bag. A piece of frozen flesh struck the table with a dull thud. "How," the technician said. "Looks eaten." "Yes, it does," Stone said. "What do they want with us?" The technician consulted the enclosed documents. "Lizard is biting local children. They have a question about identification of the species, and a concern about diseases transmitted from the bite." She produced a child's picture of a lizard, signed Tina at the top. One of the kids drew a picture of the lizard. Stone glanced at the picture. "Obviously we can't verify the species," Stone said. "But we can check diseases easily enough, if we can get any blood out of this fragment." "What are they calling this animal?" "Basiliscus amoratus with 3-toed genetic anomaly," she said, reading. "Okay," Stone said. "Let's get started. While you're waiting for it to thaw, do an X-ray and take Polaroids for the record. Once we have blood, start running antibody sets until we get some matches. Let me know if there's a problem." Before lunchtime, the lab had its answer. The lizard blood showed no significant reactivity to any viral or bacterial antigen. They had run toxicity profiles as well, and they had found only one positive match. The blood was mildly reactive to the venom of the Indian king cobra. But such cross-reactivity was common among reptile species, and Dr. Stone did not think it noteworthy to include in the facts his technician sent to Dr. Martin Gutierrez that same evening. There was never any question about identifying the lizard that would await the return of Dr. Simpson. He was not due back for several weeks, and his secretary asked if the TDL would please store the lizard fragment in the meantime. Dr. Stone put it back in the Ziploc bag and stuck it in the freezer. Martin Gutierrez read the facts from the Columbia Medical Center / Tropical Diseases Laboratory. It was brief. Subject, Basiliscus amoratus with genetic anomaly. Forwarded from Dr. Simpson's office. Materials, posterior segment. Partially eaten animal. Procedures performed. X-ray, microscopic, immunological RTX. For viral, parasitic, bacterial disease. Findings, no histologic or immunologic evidence for any communicable disease in man in this Basiliscus amoratus sample. Signed. Richard Stone, MD, Director. Gutierrez made 2 assumptions based on the memo.
Can you hear it okay? Max out the volume. Blast the neighbors.
King Ralu, we just received word that the last free
Can you hear the princess?
I understand. Robert,
I paused
the demon king. Please someone you can stop.
You're talking over and I can hear that you can hear it.
You are not alone. Zora and regional leaders as well as Zelda. Of course, you can count on me.
Something I'd like to show you. Stand with me. I need all of your aid.
Do you think ankle bracelets look good on men? Gay men, yes.
We all gathered here, swear on our lives to serve Ralu, the King of Light.
You know, you shouldn't, expose that bird hero out of the closet until it's his time. When he's ready to come out of the closet. You shouldn't just, that happened to Ellen Page on the set of X-Men 3. The director just totally called her out as being a gay person before she even knew about herself. It's like, oh, what a horrible way to gain self-knowledge. probably right in calling out the bird guy with the ankle bracelet. Now that I think about it, it's like Dumbledore. It's good retconning. We decide after the fact that it's completely true. So I get there. I'm going on a journey. Oh my god. Back my step. Oh my gosh. I'm just leaving this corner of the world. This is a waste of time. I'm not gonna freaking be mad on electric. This is ridiculous. This electro dude is a big pain in the patootie. Oh, my sidekick killed it off. are you laughing at? To have a fourth kid? Me too! Oh no! You made me laugh and sabotage my game. Are you proud of yourselves? No, I saw it. That's what they decide is newsworthy right now. They aren't talking about the condo. They're talking about like somebody who thinks women should get married. In 2024, the audacity. The audacity. It's paradoxical that it's kind of part true because, hear me out, in the olden days when my only like did like this, you know, the strong labor and the ladies didn't consider getting a job like that. Well, the people, the workers here had like twice the bargaining power. Because it's like, oh, you're gonna replace me, you have to choose a boy. But now it like equality, like everyone can work, so it's like everybody wants to work, so it's like everybody works. Instead of asking someone, like, are we gonna pay your bills and one other person, it's like, well, you would be the person working. So you understand my little point of paradox. It's wrong. Part right. Yeah. Our country celebrates female pickers more than I don't know. There's not really anyone who's cool to celebrate. Because you're either poor, a hero, or you live long against it. You live long Oh, if anyone's watching this, sorry that. But it's like, yeah, whether guys work more or girls work more, it's good to have someone who doesn't work. It's less exhausting than working. Also, my views are seriously liberal / Yeah, you can't guess because I don't feel the need to box about the stuff that I post. It's like the idea that you're supposed to spread the good word and you're supposed to let people know what the truth is. I'm not much of a preacher, so I really only talk when I'm in a weird mood and have something stupid to say. Does that make sense? If you ever hear me express my views about anything, it's when I'm just about to say something stupid. So you would be shocked at how amazingly good I talk about Stop. Yeah, stupid bats.
Received as much in those classes and sessions as the questioners. Vague outlines of the furniture in the dark room, the distant noise of a passing train, everything felt so alien, so hostile, and
By simply listening, slow down. See just how peaceful today can be. Greetings, children. It is I, your obedient servant, Sebastian St. Smalls. We're gonna do the power of now. Eckhart Tolle. Mixed up, crossed over, mashed up with Hyperlight Drifter. My co-host Shadow says hello. Wish us luck. Catch you guys on the flip side. Okay, we are both live as we speak, using the speech patterns and personality of Daisy Moses from the Beverly Hillbillies. Use 150 words to hype up this episode as we speak live to everybody.
Well, howdy there, folks. Gather round, gather round. Y'all ain't gonna believe what we got cooking up tonight on Zen Theater Live. We got ourselves a mighty fine mashup with Hyper Light Drifter, a game so purty it'll make your head spin. And Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, spouting wisdom sweeter than Granny's apple pie. Now picture this. We're drifting through a pixelated wonderland, dodging laser beams, all while Mr. Tolle's soothing voice is teaching us how to live in the here and now. It's like trying to churn butter while riding a bull. So y'all grab a packet of crisps and join us for a heaping helping of fun, laughs, and a dash of enlightenment. Tune in and let's get this party started, Beverly Hills style. Yeehaw!
I know you, Holly. What do you want? You're under arrest. Under arrest? What do you mean? What for? Spreading dissension and inciting a mutiny. Silver, you're under arrest. At length, the large...
Street Fighter 6.
Welcome to...
Blackstone Audio presents Watership Down by Richard Adams. This book contains the following dedications. To Juliet and Rosamond, remembering the road to Stratford-on-Avon. Introduction. Richard Adams. Whenever our family had to make a long journey in the car, I used to tell stories to my two little girls. Some of these were stories that everybody knows, such as Cinderella, Jack the Giant Killer. But a lot of them were stories that I made up myself, and my daughters particularly liked these, because they felt that they were their own stories and no one else's, made up for their own enjoyment. One day, when we had to make a journey of over 100 miles, they asked for a long story, which we have never heard before. Such a story could only be spontaneous. I began improvising, and started with the first thing that came into my head. Once upon a time, there were two rabbits, called Hazel and Fido. For some of the animals in the story, I took characteristics and features from real people I had met over the years, so that each rabbit had a distinct, individual personality. As for Piha, the seagull, it was based on a Norwegian resistance fighter whom I had met during the race. Fido was derived from Cassandra, the Trojan prophetess who was cursed by the god Apollo always to tell the truth and never to be believed. To Hazel, I gave the qualities of an officer under whom I had served. He had the natural power of leadership. He was not only brave, but modest and retired, yet with excellent judgment. Felix was based upon another officer, a tremendous hunter, who was at his best when he had been told exactly what he had to do. In making up this anthropomorphic story, I followed the idea of rugged Kipling in these two jumpers. That is to say, although my rabbits could think and talk, I never made them do anything physical that real rabbits could not. The story was not finished on the car journey, and I continued it during morning car runs to school. When at last it was finished, Juliet said, "That story is too good to waste, Daddy. You ought to write it down." At first I demurred, but one evening when I was reading aloud to them at bedtime from an Oxford book, I finally threw it across the room and said, "Good Lord, I could write better than that myself." Rosamond said, "Well, I only wish you would, instead of keeping on talking about it." Thus, taking the task, I finally agreed. I used to write in the evenings after supper, and I read to the girls each day. They were free to criticize, and often suggested alterations and additions, which I adopted. The comic rabbit Bluebell, for instance, was introduced at their suggestion. To make the rabbit as convincing as possible, I had resorted to The Private Life of the Rabbit by R.N. Locke, a well-known English naturalist and ornithologist. We first met when I asked him to read the final draft of the book, and he contributed several good suggestions. I remember, in particular, that he devised a passage in Watership Down in which the rabbits raised nutmeg sauce. We became great friends, and used to go for walks together in the summer. We also went together on a cruise ship through the Antarctic. An account of this was published in our book, Voyage Through the Antarctic. Watership Down is a real place, like all the places in the book. It lies in North Hampshire, about 6 miles southwest of Newton, and 2 miles west of King Street. When I was a little boy, I often walked on the downs with my father, who used to point out the birds and wildflowers, and thus began my lifelong love of nature. The downs form a singular feature of Southern. Geologically, they are chalk, and have several birds and wildflowers peculiar to the chalk country. The Ordnance Survey map for this area is sheet 174, which includes Watership Down and square 4957. This and sheet 185 cover the whole area of the story. The rabbit language, Lapine, was invented word by word in the course of time. This took place wherever a rabbit word was needed, rather than words used by human beings. For example, going above ground to feed is a phrase hardly needed by human beings. But rabbits would need a single word, a word they quite often needed to use. For example, silver. Again, star was a rabbit word meaning Superman, parallel, and fear. The Lapine plural suffix ill, rather than the English suffix n, was used to help to emphasize that Lapine was a different language. There is a certain amount of Arabic influence, For example, Fraka and Tehar. Tehar is one of the Arabic words for sea. Again, some of the invented words were given a kind of woofy, fluffy sound. For example, Efrata, the sort of noises that Arabs might make if they did so. There is no grammar or construction in the language. It is simply a motley collection of substantives, adjectives, and verbs. Here and there, a word is onomatopoeic. For example, the sound of a tractor going along. With regard to the epigraphs at the head of each chapter, Juliet said, I like them, because when you read one for the first time, you can't imagine how it is going to have anything to do with the story. Then, as you read on, you see how it does. I never thought of the book becoming a bestseller, but I did think in terms of a novel's time, which I could give to my book and say, there you are, this is the book you wanted to write. I submitted it to one publisher after another, as well as to several literary agents. It was rejected again and again, several times, always on the same ground. Older children wouldn't like it because it is about family, which they consider basic, and younger children wouldn't like it because it is written in an adult style. I refused to alter the draft in any way, and went on writing the story. One day, I read in The Spectator a review of a book called Wood Magic by the Victorian author Richard Jeffers, first published in 1881 and never reprinted until now. It occurred to me that the publisher who had reprinted Wood Magic might possibly react favorably to his name, I saw from the review, was Rex Conway. I guessed that this was a very small firm without much capital, but it was worth a try. I got in touch with him and submitted the fair typescript. My judgment was right. Rex Collins accepted the book at once. It was he who gave it the title Watership Down. The first edition consisted of no more than 2,500 copies, as much as Rex Collins could afford. He might not have much money, but one thing he could get a review copy on every London desk that mattered. That was in November 1972. I was staggered by the number of pages in the review. But the first edition was quickly sold out, and quite a lot of people complained to me that, much as they wanted to buy a copy, apparently there was none to be had. That winter, Macmillan, New York, accepted the book for publication. What followed was a rather amusing paradox. The American edition, a much larger one, attracted attention in the United Kingdom, so that, in effect, the book came from America to England. The Penguin edition appeared in 1974. The deluxe edition, beautifully illustrated by John Lawrence, appeared in 1976. Since that time, the book has never been out of print and has been published in many translations throughout the world. Year by year, I receive a great deal of fan mail, and not only from young people, but people of all ages. Following the example of the Duke of Wellington, who replied personally to every letter he received, I do my best to answer. Naturally, I am glad that the book has been enjoyed by so large a public, and that it plainly has a wide appeal, although the reason has never been altogether clear. I want to emphasize that Watership Down was never intended to be some sort of allegory or parable. It is simply the story about rabbits made up and told in the country. Part 1. Journey. Chapter 1. Boris, why do you cry out unless it some vision of horror? The house reeks of death and dripping blood. Boris, how so? It is but the odor of the altar sacrifice. Cassandra, the stench is like a breath from the tomb. Aeschylus, Agamemnon. The primroses were open. Toward the edge of the wood, where the ground became open and sloped down to an old fence and a brambly ditch beyond, only a few fading patches of pale yellow still showed among the dog's mercury and earth-free roots. On the other side of the fence, the upper part of the field was full of rabbit holes. In places, the grass was gone altogether, and everywhere there were clusters of dry gossip, through which nothing but the ragwort would grow. 100 yards away, at the bottom of the slope, ran the brook, no more than 3 feet wide, half-choked with kingcups, watercress, and blue brookline. The cart track crossed by a brick culvert and climbed the opposite slope to a 5-barred gate in the thorn hedge. The gate led into the lane. The May sunset was red in clouds, and there was still half an hour to twilight. The dry slope was dotted with rabbits, some nibbling at the thin grass near their homes, others pushing further down to look for dandelions, or perhaps a cowslip that the rest had missed. Here and there one sat upright on an ant-heap and looked about, with ears erect and nose in the wind. But a blackbird, singing undisturbed on the outskirts of the wood, showed that there was nothing alarming there. And in the other direction, along the brook, all was plain to be seen, empty and quiet. The warren was at peace. At the top of the bank, close to the wild cherry where the blackbird sang, was a little group of holes almost hidden by brambles. In the green half-light, at the mouth of one of these holes, 2 rabbits were sitting together side by side. At length, the larger of the 2 came up, slipped along the bank under cover of the brambles, and so down into the ditch and up into the field. A few moments later, the others followed. The first rabbit stopped in a sunny patch and scratched his ear with rapid movements of his hind legs. Although he was a yearling and still below full weight, he had not the harassed look of most outskippers. That is, the rank and file of ordinary rabbits in their first year, who, lacking either aristocratic parentage or unusual size and strength, get saddled by their elders and live as best they can, often in the open on the edge of their warren. He looked as though he knew how to take care of himself. There was a shrewd, buoyant air about him as he sat up, looked round, and rubbed both front paws over his nose. As soon as he was satisfied that all was well, he laid back his ears and set to work on the grass. His companion seemed less at ease. He was small, with wide, staring eyes, and a way of raising and turning his head which suggested not so much caution as a kind of ceaseless, nervous tension. His nose moved continually, and when a bumblebee flew humming to a thistle bloom behind him, he jumped and spun round with a start that sent 2 nearby rabbits scurrying for holes before the nearest, a buck with black-tipped ears, recognized him and returned to feeding. "Oh, it's only Fiber," said the black-tipped rabbit, jumping at bluebottles again. "Come on, Buckthorn, what were you telling me?" "Fiber?" said the other rabbit. "Why's he called that?" "Five in the litter, you know. He was the last and the smallest. You'd wonder nothing had got him by now. I always say a man couldn't see him and a fox wouldn't want him. Still, I...
Over here.
Now, Roma Wines present
Suspense. Tonight, My Wife, Geraldine, starring Edward G. Robinson.
Suspense is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant as Roma Wines bring you
Suspense. This is the Man in Black, here for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California, to raise the curtain on another study in suspense. Tonight from Hollywood, Roma Wines bring you a star, Mr. Edward G. Robinson, in the story of an amazing hoax and a phantom love that led a man along the steep and dangerous bypaths of sanity. And so with My Wife, Geraldine, And with the performance of Edward G. Robinson in the role of Geraldine's husband, we again hope to keep you in suspense.
Mr. Graham. Mr. Graham. I know you're in there, Mr. Graham. You'd better open up. It's important. All right, I'll use my passkey then. Oh, why are you sitting in the dark, Mr. Graham?
Go away. Leave me alone.
I've something to tell you. How can you sit here in the dark alone at a time like this? Gives me the creeps. Where's that light switch? Now, isn't that better with the lights on?
What do you want? Why do you keep bothering me? I told you I'm not hungry.
All right. I just brought this soup along in case. Now, listen to what I have to say, Mr. Graham.
Well, I can't very well help myself, can I?
That detective is coming back for you. He'll be here in just a few minutes.
Why are you telling me this?
I don't know. It won't do you any good unless I wanted to.
What are you driving at?
Did you kill your wife, Mr. Graham?
Oh, that's a good one.
And the others. Did you really kill all those women?
All what women?
They say you're that wife killer. The one the newspapers call the Black Widower.
Well, aren't you afraid being all alone in the same room with the Black Widower?
No, not exactly. Besides, they say he only kills women he's married to.
Well, then I should propose to you without further delay, Miss Barton.
Please, please don't joke. There's not time for it. I know a way for you to get out without being seen. There are police all around the house, but I know a way.
I'm not interested.
I wasn't going to tell you anyway. Not unless I discovered it wasn't true. About your being that murderer.
Well, the police say I killed Geraldine. They ought to know.
They found her body, Mr. Graham.
Found her? Found Geraldine? No, this is too good. Who identified her? You?
You forget, Mr. Graham. I scarcely ever saw her close enough to identify her.
Yes, but you did see her.
Well, after all, a person could hardly live in the same house for close on to 6 months without catching a glimpse of Geraldine.
Yes, of course.
Mr. Graham, you haven't much time.
And what do you want, Miss Barton? A nice, juicy confession? Yes, that would be useful, wouldn't it? We'd never have to take in roomers again. You could charge admission to this house. And this is the room where the Black Widower confessed all to me. I couldn't help it, he said. It was a compulsion. I loved her, but I had to kill her. It was just like all the others.
I'm sorry, Mr. Graham. I won't bother you again. If you need anything, well, I'll go.
No, wait. I've hurt your feelings, haven't I? Sit down. It's better with you here. Really it is.
Just tell me one thing and I'll go, Mr. Graham. Did you kill her? Not the others, but her.
Well, why Geraldine especially?
Because you loved her so. It was the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me. Sharing your happiness with her. The talks we used to have about her. The way you used to...
Oh, stop it.
I'm sorry.
I'll tell you. You won't believe it, but I'll tell you.
Oh, please do, Mr. Graham.
And, this may seem strange, but I shall have to exact a solemn promise from you never to tell anyone what I'm about to reveal.
I suppose it's wrong, but very well. You have my promise.
Well, to begin with, I couldn't possibly have killed Geraldine.
Then they've made a mistake. She's still alive.
No, she's not alive.
Oh, you knew that all along?
Of course. You see, my wife, Geraldine, never even existed.
Tonight, for suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you as star Mr. Edward G. Robinson, whom you have heard in the prologue to My Wife, Geraldine, a radio play by Robert Tallman from a story by Lawrence Marcus. Tonight's tale of suspense.
This is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. To millions all over the world, the name Elsa Maxwell stands for gracious hospitality. Her suggestions on entertaining are eagerly sought, and here's an especially timely one.
Planning a simple dinner for friends during these days of food rationing calls for imagination. Yet any hostess can compliment family and guests and make simple foods temptingly attractive. I suggest the simple and inexpensive touch that Roma lends, making party fare out of the most ordinary supper. Serve cool Roma
she's settled
More
down.
Americans
Let's get out of
enjoy
here.
Roma than any other wine. R-O-M-A, Roma wine.
Someone has to be sacrificed.
And next time you use vermouth, sweet or dry, choose Roma vermouth. Zestful, full-flavored Roma vermouth is blended, mellowed, and developed with all the traditional winemaking skill of Roma wineries, yet surprisingly low-priced. Try Roma vermouth soon, won't you?
This is Edward G. Robinson. I have certainly enjoyed appearing here this evening on Suspense, and I want to tell you how much I'm looking forward to hearing next week's broadcast in this series. My friend James M. Cain, who wrote Double Indemnity in the film version of which I have the honor of appearing this year, is the author of another wonderful suspense story called Love's Lovely Counterfeit. You will hear it next Thursday, and your star will be Mr. Humphrey Bogart.
Wait, what are you...
Remember him? I used to knock him off every morning before breakfast.
Let go! It'll swallow you up!
Sounds like quite a show, and I know you won't want to miss it.
Edward G. Robinson is currently starring in the international production The Woman in the Window. Next Thursday, same time, Mr. Humphrey Bogart will be your star of Suspense.
Presented by Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting.
What the hell?
Now, Roma Wines present Suspense.
What the hell was that?
It was a memory.
Tonight, Roma Wines present Humphrey Bogart in Love's Lovely Counterfeit.
Suspense is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant as Roma Wines bring you Suspense.
Ugly, isn't it?
This is the Man in Black, here for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California, who tonight
The
from
Red
Hollywood
Mist
bring you
showed
a
up a
star,
short
Mr.
time after
Humphrey
the Queen was
Bogart,
defeated.
who is currently being seen in the Warner Brothers production To Have
When
and
it
Have
did,
Not.
it
Mr.
trapped
Bogart
everyone
appears with
and
us tonight
everything
in
inside,
a characteristic tale
giving
by
birth to the
James M.
Society
Cain,
of
the
Revenants
author of
ruled
Double
by silver.
Indemnity and other noted contributions to the literature
The Jail
of
of the
dangerous
Mists.
adventure
As
and
time
troubled
passed,
romance.
that was the name
And so
people
with
gave to
Love's
the world
Lovely
inside.
Counterfeit, and with the performance of Humphrey Bogart,
The creatures
Roma
trapped
Wines
inside
again
the
hope to keep you
miasma
in
wander in a never-ending
suspense.
cycle of death and rebirth. Always searching for blood beads to sustain them. For now, just take it easy. Make yourself at
That's
home.
all right, Lefty. Open up. Oh, it's you, Ben. Come on in, Ben. Sal here yet? No, not yet, but he ought to be pretty soon. What's he got on his mind? I wouldn't know, Ben. Okay. Hey, what's that coming down the street? Oh, that must be those poor suckers of Citizens League. They're having a political parade. Yeah, there they are. You can see them through the window. That must be Jansen, huh? The guy they're running for mayor. That's right. The doll riding with him. What's the matter? Don't you read the papers? Sure. Yeah, I read Little Abner. Who's that, Davy May? Her name is June Lyons. She's his new secretary or something, but everybody says she's the brains of his campaign. Yeah? I could use little brains like that myself. Not that kind you couldn't, not that missionary kind. What about this Jansen? I keep forgetting that you're new around here. Jansen doesn't have a chance. Well, he's putting out a lot of publicity. He must have some dough behind him. Yeah, but you can't elect a reform ticket in a town like this, Ben. Saul's machine is too strong, not unless you got some dirt. Some real dirty dirt that smells so bad people can't ignore it. And who's going to get anything on Saul with half of the police force on his payroll? Saul isn't even worried, huh? Ah, why should he be? Saul puts up the dough, Maddox wins again, and Saul keeps on running the town. Oh, that must be Saul now.
Hiya, Lefty. Hiya, Benny. Hiya. See your draft board today?
Yeah, I saw him.
What'd they say?
Same thing. I still got that hernia from football.
That football hernia comes in pretty handy, don't it?
What's that crack supposed to mean?
What's the matter, Benny? Can't you take a joke?
Sure. I can take a joke.
What you got on this afternoon, Benny?
I guess you forgot. This is my day off.
I said, what you got on this afternoon?
Nothing that I can remember now. Why?
Little job.
What kind of a job?
I got a tip. Some friends of mine may be in a little trouble. Something about a bank.
Why don't you stick to the bookies and the gambling, Sal? You'd be safer.
Listen, Benny. Anytime you think you're big enough to run this business, just let me know. I'll be glad to work something out for you.
What's the job?
These kids are going to crack the Castleton First National just after closing time. They got a room here in this hotel, room 480. They'll be back here about 3:30. You see, I own this hotel, and I want you to go up and collect the room rent. I'm giving them good protection, so I figure it'll come to about 20 grand.
Yeah? We'll figure on getting somebody else to collect it.
What?
I said get somebody else. I don't like guns, and I don't like gunsels, and you know it.
Listen, you punk. You think you're a big guy, don't you? A big guy with muscles, and I'm just a little guy. That's what you think, isn't it? But if you try to cross me, I'll have you crawling at me on your knees. When I get through with you, you'll beg me to use a gun on you because you're yellow, aren't you? Aren't you?
What's the room number?
480.
Come on, Lefty.
Okay.
Gee, that was lousy. I'll skip it.
You're gonna do it, though, aren't you?
Sure. I'll see you up there, 3:15. Oh, by the way, what'd you say that dame's name was?
What dame?
That dame was Jansen, that brains of the opposition.
You mean June Lyons?
Yeah, that's it.
Now, wait a minute, Ben. You know that's poison. If Saul ever thought that...
You know, Lefty, Miss Lyons interests me in more ways than one.
Tonight, for suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you as star Mr. Humphrey Bogart, whom you have heard in the first act of Love's Lovely Counterfeit, a radio play from the novel by James M. Cain, which is tonight's tale of suspense presented by Roma Wines.
This is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Mention the name of Elsa Maxwell, and you picture a famous hostess, expert in every phase of entertaining. Mention a meal featuring fish or fowl, and Elsa Maxwell pictures, but let's hear it in her own words.
The thought of a piping hot fish or chicken dinner naturally calls up for me the picture of glasses of chilled Roma Sauterne at each plate. Roma California Sauterne is delicate, pale gold in color, delightful in bouquet, and even more important, exquisite in taste. Roma Sauterne goes perfectly with any food and tastes as good whether served in ordinary or fancy glasses. The one important thing to remember about this distinguished Sauterne is the name, Roma.
Each glassful of golden Roma Sauterne reflects the heritage of all Roma wines. Choice grapes, slowly brought to perfection in fertile California's choicest vineyards, then gently pressed, then carefully guided with the ancient winemaking skill of Roma wineries to the full goodness you enjoy in every Roma wine. Roma wines do not vary, are always high in quality of bouquet, color, and flavor. Yet all this Roma wine goodness is yours for only pennies a glass. No wonder more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wines. R-O-M-A, Roma wine.
We'll have a good view of the valley beyond.
And now it is with pleasure that Roma Wines bring back to our soundstage Mr. Humphrey Bogart, who in the character of Ben Grace keeps an adventurous rendezvous in Love's Lovely Counterfeit, a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
All right, get rolling.
Are you...
That's right, get rolling.
So you're June Lyons, the brains of the opposition.
What's this hot tip you told me about over the phone? I don't have much time.
What's the matter? You worried?
Not particularly.
You don't have to be. I'm not interested in you.
Why do you want to see Jansen elected?
Suppose you let me ask the question.
All right.
I'll ask you the same one. Why are you working for Johnson?
Oh, I'm just one of those crazy idealists, I guess.
Just a missionary, huh?
Well, Jansen may not be the best man in the world, but at least he isn't hooked up with a racketeer like Saul Casper, the way Maddox is.
June.
Oh, it's June now. What's your name?
Maybe I'll tell you that later, and maybe I won't. Listen, June. If you were one of those earnest kids who stand around on street corners handing out leaflets, I might believe you wanted to reform the world, but you're not. I know that you know that electing Johnson isn't going to reform the world or even reform Lake City. It just doesn't make that much difference.
Well, it does to me. But there's something else, too.
Even if we don't find
like
anything
what?
up here,
Jansen wins, of course, I'll get a city job on.
I know.
A good one.
But I have a good feeling.
That's more like it.
But I want to explain why.
You don't have to explain anything.
But I want to. I'm a lawyer. At least I have a degree from law school. And I want to be a good lawyer.
Shit!
If you start out on your own, it can take years. But with the right job at City Hall, you can build up a practice in no time.
Okay. As long as it's the dough you're thinking about, we can do business.
You just...
I know. Now listen. I know. You're a missionary. Now listen, if I give you some dirt on Sal Casper that'll send him up for 10 years or so, Jansen wins, right?
Well, you can prove it.
You're going to prove it. 3 punks from Chicago are sticking up the Castleton First National Bank at about 3 this afternoon. Sal Casper's hiding them out at his hotel, room 480. If there's any shooting at the bank and anybody gets killed, it'll be that much better. Grab them for accessory to murder. You have your people there at 4 o'clock. I'll take care of the rest.
If we come out for this and it can't be proved, it's criminal libel. And that's all Jansen needs to really lose.
So, what do you think?
I think you're working for Maddox and Casper.
Well, that could be. But at least I know my law.
What law?
The Castleton Bank is insured by the government. That makes them stick up a federal rap. If you want the number of the FBI, I'll give it to you.
Oh.
And for your information, my name is Ben Grace, and I work for Sal Casper, so... not a guy who's in a very good position to go around giving phony tips to the FBI. You can pull right up here. Because I just decided Sal Casper is mean. He's greedy. Is that enough?
Room 480. Ben?
Yeah?
Will I see you?
Don't worry, baby. You'll see me. Well, this is room 480. Looks just like room 481. I am at the gas. You think too hard. I can't say I like it. What time is it? War.
It's too bad not too bad.
What's too bad?
That you don't like trouble. You go a long way in this racket, Ben, because you got brains. Now me, I don't have the brains.
I wouldn't.
Did I ever tell you how I started, Ben?
No.
I was a preacher.
A what?
Yep, a preacher. So help me. By rights, I still am. Look here, I got the license right here in my wallet. It was one of those hillbilly outfits, and the bishop, as he called himself, was so far away from me that he never ever heard about me, I guess.
I can feel it.
Anyway, he never canceled the license.
Stretch to the top.
The Reverend Richard Jose Gauss.
let's see what's up there.
Yeah, that's one for the books, Lefty.
I was just a kid. But I got hooked up with one of those big-time evangelists, and if I'd stuck to it, I could have hit the big time myself. But you know what I did? The first time we made a really big take, I tied a handkerchief over my face, got me a rod, and stick up the cash box. And they caught me. That's how I know I haven't got brains.
I wouldn't let it worry you, Lefty.
That's not what's worrying me now, Ben.
Looks like we climb from
Oh,
here.
what is?
What's going to be happening in here in a couple of minutes?
Right.
You ever sat in on a divvy before, Ben?
No. I wouldn't be now, except for the manpower shortage.
These are 3 wild kids, Ben. Chances are they'll be coked to the ears and slobbering at the mouth, with being half scared to death and half crazy with excitement, thinking how much dough they got and what big shot public enemies they are. And we, yeah, you and me, we gotta walk up and take 20 grand.
All right, here they are. So now we're gonna find out how it's done.
This is it. Get him in here.
Oh, Johnny, don't leave me. Will you, Johnny?
Get him over there on the truck. Who are you?
I'm the man that collects the room rent.
Yeah, well, stick him up. Frisk him, Marty.
Go ahead. I don't need a rod to handle punks like you.
This guy's clean, Johnny. What about the other one?
He's with me, and he's got a gun, and don't try to take it away from him because it's an old family heirloom, and he's fond of it.
Oh, yeah?
Now stop acting like something you've seen in a movie. Put that cannon away. Might drop it and break somebody's foot. What's the matter with your pal, man?
He got shot.
Anybody else?
No. The guard shot him when we were pulling out.
Oh, Johnny. You better get him over there on that
Johnny,
bed.
we're going too fast, Johnny.
Yeah?
We're going too fast. We're going too fast.
He's out of his head.
Yeah. You get the dough?
Did we get the dough? Look at this wise guy. 40 grand, maybe more.
You know how much this room is costing you?
How much?
20 grand.
20 grand?
That's right. I'll be back after a while to collect it.
I'll give you some
What are you going to do with your pal there with the whole time?
I don't know.
Johnny.
You know that's bad, don't you?
Why?
Kid's out of his head already. Suppose he makes trouble, starts screaming or something.
You got doctors, haven't you?
Sure, but that kind of a doctor, that's one more guy that have to get a cut. Pretty soon you guys won't have anything left but small change.
That's what you think.
But, of course, maybe the kid will die.
Yeah? And then what do we do? That's even worse.
Oh, no. Well, that'll be easy. We'll be seeing you.
I hope you know what you're doing, Ben.
I think so. Come on, I got the room next door.
You know you're just as good as signing that kid's death warrant, don't you?
That's right.
The other 2 will knock him off now before we got time to do it.
Now, listen, I got the transom open connecting to your door.
What you gonna do? Johnny, no.
They did it.
Yeah. Maybe we better call Sal, huh?
I hope you know what you're doing.
Now, give me Mr. Casper. Ben Gray speaking.
Yes, sir. I hope you know what you're doing, Ben.
Sal, this is Ben. You better come up to room 480, Sal. They want to see you personally. I said they want to see you personally. Well, you want your dough or don't you? I'm not going to wrestle him for it. Okay. You'll be right up.
Then what?
What do you mean, then what?
Ben.
Yeah?
If you got any little plans, you know I'm all for them, don't you?
Sure.
And you know I hope they come off, don't you?
Sure.
But if they don't come off, you know where I stand on that, too, don't you?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know. You stand right behind me with a gun in my back.
Just so you know, Ben.
Oh, I can see how you would have made a preacher, Lefty. You got a terrible streak of honesty in you.
Just so you know, Ben.
Now listen, there he is.
I'm Saul Casper. What's going on here?
It's been a little trouble, Mr. Casper.
What kind of trouble?
Archie, he just died.
Died?
He was shot.
All right, so we'll get him out of here tonight. You got the dough?
Sure, we got it.
Let's see it.
Here.
All right, put up your hands, all of you.
What is it?
Department of Justice. You're all under arrest.
We made it!
Well, that's all, pal.
Ben, where are you going?
Oh, God.
I got a date with a missionary.
Ben.
Hello, baby. Where's my good evening kiss?
Oh, Ben, please. I want to talk to you.
What about?
Don't you know?
Yeah, I guess maybe I do.
Oh, we can't go on like this, Ben. It isn't right. It isn't fair to Jackson. It isn't fair to... Well, it isn't fair to me.
What's so unfair about it?
You know what's unfair about it.
Mr. Jansen promised the people of Lake City that if he got elected, he'd clean up the town.
All right, why doesn't he do it? He's had 6 months.
Because he doesn't even know what's going on.
Great. Then what's the beef?
Well, I know what's going on. The horse racing places and the gambling places and all the other places are just as open as they ever were. And I know who's keeping them open.
Of course you do. I am. Listen, honey, if I wasn't bossing the organization, someone else would be. People like to bet, people like to gamble.
Ben, don't you see? I'm a city official. I have an obligation to the people of this community. To the people who elected Johnson because they believed in...
Still a missionary, huh?
Well, I'm not a racketeer.
Maybe not. But you're the next thing to it.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, where do you think the dough came from for that car I got you, the fur coat, this place?
You never told me.
Did I have to? You knew I didn't get it from a long-lost uncle. Well, why don't you admit it, baby? You're a chiseler.
Am I?
Sure, just like me. Only I'm honest about it. You're not.
Then I will be. Starting now. Starting tonight.
What are you gonna do, turn me in?
Ben.
Maybe your big mistake was falling in love with me, baby. Now there isn't much you can do about it, is there?
Oh, Ben, quit it, please. Get out of it. For my sake, just because I don't like it. Because I hate it.
Maybe I don't like it either. That's all I know how to do.
What was...
Sal.
Right?
Kind of. Did you break out?
Yeah, just to see you, Ben. Put up your hands.
You know I never carry a rod.
Maybe you sort of wish you did now, huh? Not that you'd have a chance to use it.
What are you going to do?
I'm gonna kill your boyfriend, sweetheart. When I've done that, I'll think of something real nice to do to you.
Oh.
You sit right there where you are, sweetheart. Benny, you start backing up to that door. Slow. That's a bathroom, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I'll kill you in the bathtub, Benny. That way it'll be quiet. There won't be so much of a mess. Now, reach behind you real careful and open the door. And when I tell you to start backing in, you back in. All right, start backing.
I don't leave me down. June. Yeah. Since when have you been carrying a gun?
Just lay there. Ben, are you all right?
I just want to sit down.
Oh, Ben.
We gotta get out of here.
Ben, listen to me. We'll go away. We'll get out of the country. We'll go to Canada.
Sure.
We can get married there. You do want to marry me, don't you, Ben?
No, you know I do, baby.
You can join the army up there. I'll do something, too. We'll do something decent with our lives. Oh, darling, I know it's been partly my fault. I know I've been weak, but it isn't too late to begin again, is it?
Maybe not. But your aim on that second shot wasn't too good, baby.
Ben.
So there's just one thing that's stopping it.
Ben, what?
Bullet holes, I'm telling you.
Well, hello, big shot. You've been in the land and nod, haven't you?
Where am I?
City Hospital.
Yeah. What are you doing here?
Reading the funny papers, can't you tell?
Why can't you read them at home?
Because there's been a little thing that we policemen call murder, big shot. You know what we call a material witness.
Where's June? June Lyons.
She's in a nice, cozy cell. When she comes to trial, your statement will probably send her up for 5 or 10 years to another nice, cozy cell.
What statement?
Oh, you talk.
Yeah?
You know what you got, big shot?
Sure. I got ventilated with a lead slug.
Yeah, but that's not all. You got peritonitis.
Oh, I have. So what?
So, I've seen guys with peritonitis before. You know what happens? First, they start getting a fever. Then they get kind of lightheaded. Then they get thirsty. Terribly thirsty. And after a while, you get so you can make them talk without they hardly know they're talking. Yeah, you talk, all right.
You think so?
I know.
Where's Lefty go?
You mean your faithful servant? He's right outside.
Now, can I talk to him alone?
Sure, why not? Hey, Putty Nose, your boss wants to see you.
Thanks, you funny fella. How you been? How you feeling? Not too good. I got some plans to talk over with you, Lefty.
Okay.
Oh, Flatfoot.
Yeah, what do we have now, big shot?
You say the DA wants me to talk, huh?
Maybe he was just pretending.
Well, suppose I had some conditions.
Like what?
Well, like I only talk in the apartment where it happened, June Lyons' apartment. June Lyons has got to be there. Lefty here, too, to back up some things I might say.
That might be arranged.
You think the DA might forget a couple of those little things he's been holding against me if I talk?
That'd be the general idea.
Okay. You can close the door as you go out. Tell the DA to be around in about an hour. I'll talk.
All I'm saying is that I won't be responsible. Dragging a man in his condition way out here in an ambulance, lugging him up 3 flights of stairs on a stretcher.
Doc, that's the way he wanted it, and that's the way it's going to be. All right, everybody here. Miss Lyons? Lefty Gauss?
Yes.
How is he now?
I've already told you.
But he can talk. Stop worrying about...
Camouflage for infants, as they are only 1 centimeter long, so they're pretty hard to find. They feed on toxic, tiny polychaete worms, and when they eat the worms, they can actually take the toxins stored in the worms and store it within their own bodies to use against predators that try to make a meal out of them. Not much is really known about these size. They can live in shallow water zones as well as on algal turf and in crevices and burrows. Found in the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, as well as the Caribbean and Mediterranean seas. Under UV light, this animal glows red. Since this snail has not much of a shell, it's thought to be an important missing link between snails, slugs, and other mollusks, evolutionarily speaking. Follow for more ocean facts, and I'm glad you got to.
Catchy vibe on the flip side.